him.
You're on.
I know, dude. Those were the days, dude. Like I made mention on Facebook the other day that the only new rapper that I'm sort of messing with is Moneybag Yo. Other than that, all these other guys are all total trash. And just the other day when I was in my room, I just threw on some old Kanye.
Yeah.
And it was like a long 1 hour concert. Like I don't know what YouTube was on, but they were hitting all the right songs at the right time.
Yeah.
You know.
Graduation Kanye is play it from front to back. Don't even you don't have to hit the skip button. You just vibe throughout the whole album. Yeah, that's some next level shit. But when we're talking about Waka Flocka, I got a whole lot, and then just everybody starts going nuts. That's all it is.
Listen to the track, bitch.
Hey, I will say that song was a bang. And then everybody was waiting for Wale's verse on there. Look my no hands. I said look my no hands. I don't dance. Yeah, that was hard. Yeah.
You know how it is. That song is specifically like if you didn't have a lady at that point,
yeah,
you might as well just go into the bar and get yourself a drink. That was like the perfect grind song right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Those were the days, man. Now everyone just sounds the same trap rap crap that's out there now. That's not named Moneybag Yo. Everything.
I'm gonna have to check out Moneybag Yo. That's gonna be on my list.
Yeah, man. Moneybag Yo sounds like a grown man. Doing grown man things. Everyone else sounds the same. Like you got Lil Baby out here doing the auto-tune trap. It is the worst.
He has maybe two songs that I like. I think one of them was Freestyle, and the other one, I think the other one was one with Drake, and even that one's not that great. Like maybe Drake has one nice verse on that one. But yeah, I think like music in general now has changed. So like even like this new, the new Young Thug album, his sort of like I guess his label album. I'm almost embarrassed to say that I kind of like some of Young Thug's songs in like his like first 5 years coming out. He had some songs where you put them on while you're working out and you'll go, but like the ones where he's like, it's just getting to the point where it's elementary. It's like all he says is like one song's just like sex. So, and it's like, okay, let's think of something a little bit deeper than that if we can. But
dude, am I tweaking? Does it look like there's something on my microphone?
It looks like you got a little white thing under. Yeah, right. No,
right here, right?
No, I don't see anything there. I was gonna say right there. You got a little white spot, but I was just thinking that was the mic. So I think you good, man.
It might be my camera because I don't see.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't see anything.
I don't see anything.
No,
I think there's a ghost by my microphone. So if I say anything stupid, it was not me.
No,
I was officially possessed by whatever ghost is sitting right here in my room.
If Young Thug and any of his mafia are listening to this, we didn't mean what we said. Go ahead.
Yeah, and on top of that, I would like to give a big double Stone Cold Steve Austin middle fingers to Phil to tell me happy belated Star Wars. Dude, Star Wars is the most boring crap I've ever watched in my life. It is so non-believable. You mean to tell me that people are actually watching around these idiots going around with lightsabers and Luke Skywalker, that's 125 pounds soaking wet, somehow killed his own dad that's like Goliath almost? Really? You expect me to believe that? Dude, piss off. Dude, Star Wars is boring. Chewbacca's stupid. The RDD, everything about it is dumb. So when I go on Facebook and everything, oh, may the fourth be with you. What a collection of dorks. God bless.
I have to say,
people waste good money to watch a bunch of dorks in space.
Yeah.
And we all know that Luke Skywalker is going to win in every one that he's in. So why in the hell am I going to watch it?
Yeah.
Boring.
I have to say the first Star Wars I ever watched was the Revenge of the Sith. It was the one that was the newest one, the newer when we were younger.
The one with
the red face, with the double, the red face. And I remember thinking, this is a pretty okay movie. Like I didn't get too into it, but then I remember dating somebody who was like, you have to watch the Star Wars series. It's so good. And I just remember watching and thinking, is this Spaceballs? Like, is this like a parody movie? Because it happened so long ago, and they made it so long ago that you watch it and it just doesn't hold up. If you listen, I understand people who watched it back then and were like, I was a child and that's what fine, go ahead, do your thing. But to try and convince me now, the 30-year-old me, that Star Wars first movie was a masterpiece, I'm sorry. I just think there was a lack of creativity in Hollywood at the time.
Garbage,
They hit a nice little thing. So listen, I'll give you
management garbage.
Waste management, yeah.
That's what Star Wars is.
Yeah.
And I mean, dude, I got friends with Star Wars Mickey Mouse tattoos all over them, wearing all the shirts with all the little Yoda dolls, and then got the nerve to make fun of me because of my wrestling affiliation. No, piss off, because you can't always predict what's going to happen in wrestling. I can tell you exactly what's going to happen in Star Wars, and it's not fun. It's boring.
Yeah, and the production value is so much higher on wrestling. Like, the production value so much more enjoyable. Even in the 90s and 80s, when you watch some of these like weird matches where they had weird characters, you still went, that's kind of cooler than like, bing, 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 like the way that they shot the gun.
Exactly. Like, oh my God, here they come. Dude, if I wanted to watch a space movie worth watching, I'd watch like Apollo 13, or I'd watch Independence Day, the first one, not the remake, but the first one. Those were good space movies. Star Wars, dude, blow it out of your ass. And then they had the audacity to make like 8 of these things. So they were really that desperate.
And you know what my favorite part about it is, Nick?
Star Wars movies?
You know what my favorite part about it is? All the Star Wars fans like hated the newer ones. They're like, this is terrible. And I'm like, as far as my money is concerned, those are the best ones because they have real, actual, special effects, cool like action scenes at least. Dude, some of these action scenes in the old Star Wars is like a choreography dance. It's like. And it's like, oh man, come on. So yeah, sorry guys, if you love Star Wars, this isn't the show for you. I don't think.
Yeah, this is not the show for you.
We're not going to give you guys
sympathy.
Show for you,
though. It's us getting into this NFL draft that happened a good week ago.
Yeah.
And so we saw some surprising moves. And it really started, in my opinion, at number 3, because we all knew that Trevor Lawrence was going to Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And we all knew that Zach Wilson was going to the New York Jets.
Yeah.
And we didn't know what was going to happen at 3. And that's where everything kind of came together, because at 3, one of 2 places where I thought Mac Jones should have gone was San Francisco. They go with Trey Lance instead over Mac Jones, which I thought it really came down to either it was going to be Justin Fields or it was going to be Mac Jones. I didn't think Trey Lance was really going to be there, but they go ahead and take Trey Lance, and then once we got past 3, we knew that Atlanta was pretty much, if they weren't going to go Kyle Pitts, they're either going to trade out of that spot or potentially go for defense, which I really thought they needed.
Yeah.
But apparently Kyle Pitts is like the next can't miss star on in this draft. So Atlanta went with their 4. But then where the curveball really came in, I think, was actually at 5, where a lot of people had the Bengals going with Penei Sewell, the offensive lineman, at 5. Instead, they go with Joe Burrow's buddy, was
Jamar Chase.
Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
So he goes at 5, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, you can't protect Joe Burrow." Blah 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 blah. Slow your roll, dude. There's like 8 other rounds that you can get offensive linemen, and the offensive lineman depth in the draft was actually pretty deep. Yeah. So why not give Joe Burrow, a guy who caught passes from Joe Burrow when he had probably better numbers than he did last year, and Jamar Chase. So I had no problem with that pick. I thought they could have really went either way. The whole world thought that Cincinnati took the L on that. I'm actually neutral on it. I get it, protect Joe Burrow, but you gave him his number 1 mate, And
Yeah.
now you put him, because AJ Green is now gone.
Yep.
So now you're gonna have, what is it? John Ross is coming back from injury.
You got T.
And
Higgins
you got T.
and
Higgins
Tyler
and a couple other
Boyd
guys,
too.
right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
and also I think with Cincinnati, I think they were really hoping that Kyle Pitts would fall to them. I really think that they were hoping to keep a really low profile, and hopefully they were gonna catch Kyle Pitts, on that. I think they were hoping Atlanta maybe go offensive line, but I think Atlanta's decided, you know what, instead of losing 55-41 next year, we're gonna lose 55-48. We're gonna get Kyle Pitts in here for more offense, because everybody knows, who's been watching Atlanta for the last 3, 4, 5 years, even going back to when they were in the Super Bowl, offense has never been the problem for them. They have a starting level tight end on their team, Hayden Hurst, a really nice piece, and they decided to go with what they feel is like an X factor, right? That a lot of people are saying this is sounding the alarm that maybe this is a sign that Julio Jones is going out of town, and that eventually a trade will happen when the cap hits a little bit less. But I agree with you. I think that was a little bit weird, and I think what happened was we saw Cincinnati was not the only team to do it. It was about pairing a young quarterback with a top-level wide receiver they played with in college, right? So, for Cincy, it was Burrow and Chase. For Miami, who was the next pick, it was number 6. It was Waddle and Tua, and then you mentioned, and then later on we see it was Philadelphia, after they trade up, selects Devontae Smith to pair with Jalen Hurts. So I could see the thought process around that, but I think you were right. I think the Penei Sewell thing really, I think it threw a wrench into people's. I think a lot of people were thinking that Atlanta and Cincy, it was a no-brainer for one of those to pick him up. And then when that dropped, I think Detroit was so shocked by that they just had to take that chance. So, and then 8 is really the interesting point of the draft, Nick, because 8 is what triggered a lot of the movement, including with the Giants, the Eagles, the Bears, that we'll get into. Dallas. So 8, it was, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I believe 8 was, 8 was the Panthers. They ended up taking Carolina. Yep, they ended up taking J.C. Horn, who a lot of people thought was one of the top corners in this draft, if not the top corner. But I think people were a little bit surprised to see that Carolina either didn't drop back or maybe draft around, a little bit more around the offensive side of the ball. And then I think that's what triggered, the weirdness with the Giants, the Dallas Cowboys, and the Eagles, right? Because what happened was the Bears, first of all, the Bears were never, ever expecting that they would have a shot at Justin Fields. I think they had already put it out of their mind that he's going to go in front of us, and if he doesn't go in front of us, we're going to have to jump too far ahead to try and have a chance at him. And when Carolina and Denver went cornerback back-to-back, that really changed the makeup of the draft. And we have Phil in the comments talking about what we're about to talk about. Was after calming down that the Giants didn't take Parsons, I'm perfectly fine with the Giants draft. So what ended up happening is essentially the Philadelphia Eagles trade up with Dallas for Devontae Smith after Devontae Smith drops. And then the next pick, which was supposed to be for the Giants, apparently the Giants were so hell-bent on getting a wide receiver that they felt like they had enough to get back. And let's be honest, I said it at the time, Nick, a first-round pick next year, a fourth-round pick, and I believe another fifth-round pick, plus the number 20, to move up, 9 spots, is a heavy, heavy price to pay, and the Bears did it.
Right, they did. And so then once they okay, so let's kind of build up a little bit there, because you did a great job on that one, where I think the shock was 9, because a lot of people thought that that Denver actually was going to go with Justin Fields was the consensus.
Yeah.
They turn around and take Patrick Surtain the second, which really in hindsight is what I think a lot let Dallas go ahead and trade back with Philadelphia, because I think that's who they wanted.
Right.
They wanted Patrick Surtain or J.C.
Or
Horn,
Horn, right.
because where they lacked was in the secondary. So I think that with everything that went down, I think I keep doing Carolina again. I thought Denver not going after Fields really lit the fire, and I think what it did was because the person to blame, in my opinion, and we'll drag his name in the mud a little bit later, but I'm talking about Aaron Rodgers, because before the draft happens, he now goes out and says that he doesn't want to be in Green Bay. He's got like this list of teams that he'd like to join, and the Raiders, Broncos, and somebody else I can't think of.
49ers.
The 49ers was on the list, and I guess the word on the street is he wants to be closer to his fiance, who stays out closer to the West Coast.
Bro, buy her a house.
The West Coast team. Exactly. And I think that's where Denver handcuffed themselves, because I think Denver somewhere thought that they may actually have a deal in place to try and acquire Aaron Rodgers from Green Bay.
Yeah.
And they're willing to almost give up first-round picks for the next 3 years for him.
Yep.
So I think that's why they went Patrick Surtain too. So then Dallas trades back with Philadelphia. They take Devontae Smith, and then like you mentioned, bang, we weren't 1 minute of the Giants being on the clock, and the Bears tag comes up there, so they trade up 9 spots. You see the overhaul, and now the question was, is it Justin Fields or is it Mac Jones? Because it ain't for anybody else. It's either for Fields or Jones. I said that the Bears made the right move for the wrong guy, because I think the Bears should have taken Mac Jones. Nothing against Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields is really good. But the one thing that's going to really piss me off about a lot of people who I think don't really watch the draft or pay attention, I hate the fact that Mac Jones gets hated on because of the talent that he had in Alabama. Meanwhile, you're going to sit here and tell me, okay, I'll give you a prime example. I don't want to jump too far. I'll give you a prime example. I got Bucks fans crying up a river about the Bucks taking Kyle Trask in the second round, which in my opinion, I thought was a steal for Tampa Bay, personally.
Yeah.
Everyone's like I got Gator fans. They're like, but Nick, Kyle Trask couldn't beat out Felipe Franks. He only got in there because Felipe Franks got hurt.
Yeah.
Okay. But Kyle Trask, in his 1 year, when one guy got hurt, threw 43 touchdowns, led Florida to one of its best records in I don't know how long. Oh, by the way, he finished 4th in the Heisman.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell me this man is going to sit here and learn behind Tom Brady?
Yeah.
So what are we crying about?
And you're not drafting the college player, right? You're drafting the NFL draft prospect, right? So, like, no matter what happened at Florida, you're evaluating the prospect as he is. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think there was a lot of hubbub. And by the way, also something that muddied the waters for Denver before we get into the Bears, the Bridgewater trade. Because remember, the Bridgewater trade happened like 4 days before the whole Aaron Rodgers news came out. And then in their mind, they're like, shit, we just traded for Bridgewater. And then we also have, what's his name? The guy Drew Lock always escapes my brain. So, yeah, I think that muddied it even more. And, yeah, I agree with you. I think they were like, you know what? We are in a position to have a quarterback. Hopefully it's Aaron Rodgers, and there's no need to take one. So, yeah, so I want to kind of touch on a little bit more about your opinion here, because you're thinking that Mac Jones was probably the better pick for the Bears at 11.
I think Mac Jones would have been a much better pick for the Chicago Bears, because I think bro, the question I have to ask myself is, what offense is Matt Nagy really trying to run? Like, I'm not understanding it, right? Because
well, the keys are back in his hands this year, by the way. Remember, he gave up the play calling duties last year, and he made it very clear that this year I'm back on play calling. So it is going to be his offense. But yeah, you're right. Like, what offense are we going to see?
What offense are we going to see? Are you trying to mimic the offense that you were in when you had Patrick Mahomes,
Kansas City, right, and Alex Smith,
Kansas City, and now, okay, and I'm glad you brought up Alex Smith, because Alex Smith thrived in the same offense as Mahomes. He didn't get as far as Mahomes, but he was successful.
Yeah, he was.
Okay,
Yeah.
he won no 50 touchdown successful,
Right.
but that's not the quarterback Alex Smith is.
Mhm.
That's who I think Mac Jones is. I think Mac Jones is a faster, more accurate, stronger arm version of Alex Smith. And I thought he would have fit in this offense perfectly, because the one thing that I can trust Mac Jones doing that I still don't trust Justin Fields doing is throwing the football. I think Justin Fields might be the better athlete, but when it comes to making plays down the field, I think Mac Jones would have been the dude. I'm not saying that the Bears didn't made a bad pick with Justin Fields. I'm just saying I think Mac Jones is the better quarterback. That's all I'm.
I disagree with you, but that's okay, because that's what this is about. That's what this draft is about. It's evaluating people and seeing who you think would be a better fit in certain situations. But I disagree with you. I think Justin Fields is a 5-star quarterback prospect. You and I were sitting on this show. We weren't sitting here. I was at Reps, and we were talking just as the NFL playoffs were kind of getting to a head, and we started talking about, we know the draft order, and it's going to be very obviously 1-2 with Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, right? And then Justin Fields has that amazing end to the season. He didn't have a great game against Northwestern, but they still won the game, and then he ended up winning them into the championship game, and made I would say 10 to 15 superhuman type quarterback plays in that game that really helped them get to where they were at. And obviously we all know that they were just not enough for Alabama at the end of the day. I disagree with you that Mac Jones has a better arm. I think I think Justin Fields very clearly has one of the best arms in the draft. I think the main issue with Fields that Mac might not necessarily have is the reading of the defenses, especially in pro-style offense. I think Alabama ran a lot more stuff to make sure that Mac Jones would go through his progressions 1, 2, and 3, and that really results in usually a better quarterback from day one. My thing about that is, though, when you're going to sit a guy for at least a year, and I don't know how long that's going to last. You and I both know how that's going to work. It's going to be 6 games. Andy Dalton comes in, something happens, he gets nicked up, and the Bears are just foaming at the mouth for an excuse to throw in Justin Fields, right? So it's not necessarily like we're going to sit him for a whole year, but I think Justin Fields was by far the second best quarterback prospect in this draft. I think the main issues with him, and you'll hear this from San Francisco when they took Trey Lance. They were really, really interested in Trey Lance because of his ability to learn and his ability to be a sponge for the next 2 years. They're actually hoping that Trey Lance will sit for 2 years, and I'm not sure how that will work. We'll see. So I see where you're going, though. I think the main issue that I have, and the reason why I think people bring up the talent at Alabama, is because you don't have that talent with the Bears right now, right? And it's like you need to play. To me, Mac Jones is a high-level game manager, with a guy that can step in, I think, from day one and be a really good quarterback. And I think that's what the Patriots, to be quite honest, have in plans for him. I think the Patriots are not one to be like, well, we're gonna see what Cam does before. No, I think the Patriots are going to say, if he wins this in camp, it's his job. So I think the main issue that I have with Justin Fields is that I think he's going to be thrust into the NFL maybe 6 or 7 games too early. And I think in that situation, Mac Jones would have done better. So, like, if you had to throw one of the two in Game 7 next year, the Bears are, let's say, 3-3 coming into the game, and you have to throw in a rookie quarterback in there, I think you probably feel better about throwing Mac Jones in there than you do Justin Fields because of, again, what we talked about with the progressions. But Justin Fields is a 5-star quarterback talent. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But the potential is what you're drafting, right? Mac Jones, you're drafting the guy. We don't know what the ceiling looks like on Mac Jones. I think the ceiling is probably not a lot higher than what you're seeing right now, right? And I think the Bears' hope was that the ceiling on Justin Fields is so high that you almost have to take him even if you feel like he's not the most progressed quarterback right now. Mm-hmm. And I think ultimately, Nick, I'm not mad that they traded that haul for Justin Fields, but I have to say, if they traded that haul for Mac Jones, I'd be a little bit upset. Because
I think the entire Bears universe would have been pretty pissed.
Yeah. I think here's the thing about Justin Fields. First of all, he's not an Ohio State quarterback. Let's get that off the bat. The guy went to Georgia. Jake Fromm at the time had a firm grip on the job in Georgia after a couple of tremendous years, and Justin Fields decided to transfer over to Ohio State. In his transfer over to Ohio State, there was a lot of transitioning. And by the way, I mean, you and I both know he wasn't tremendous in college. He had some games where he didn't look like he was. Again, I mentioned the Northwestern game because that's one that's really, really sticking out on his record that a lot of people say, yeah, well, Northwestern runs a really good defense, and he couldn't really handle that defense. And my answer is he won the game. And I know that's not necessarily a reflection on him directly as a player, but I think it takes a lot to play your not so best ball and be able to go in and essentially handle not having your best stuff. It's like a pitcher, right, Nick? What do they say? A pitcher's not going to have his best stuff every game, right? But if the pitcher cannot have his best stuff and get you through 5 or 6 innings and give your team a chance to win, it just makes things 100 times better. So I think that's a really interesting sort of thought process to have when it comes to the draft in general. Is like, okay, we want potential, but what player that fits in from day one is better? And I think you probably have a little bit of a I would say you have an argument when it comes to Mac Jones and Justin Fields in that regard. Yeah.
Most def. And then so then the Bears trade up, and then my dumbass forgot the result.
No, you're good. And then Dallas was next.
Dallas, right. Dallas was after them, and they take Micah Parsons. And then I thought personally, I thought Dallas more or less did what they were supposed to do their entire draft, which was fix the defense.
Yep.
You got a pass rusher, you got a couple of real long defensive backs in there, and you got some more depth up there between the linebackers. Because remember, Micah Parsons makes the most sense now that Sean Lee is more or less retired from sustaining just one too many concussions over, the last few years. So he's out. You throw in Micah Parsons, who's probably the best linebacker that was, in the draft, especially in that first round talent pool. So I thought Dallas really came away well with Micah Parsons. And you know what? To be honest with you, it's not a bad consolation prize, because I know that's not who they wanted at first. I think they thought that Denver was really going to go quarterback. That's probably why they didn't try to move up with Denver, but Denver really wanted Patrick Surtain. And I really think that draft pick with Patrick Surtain is actually really nice. Yeah. Because remember, they just signed Kyle Fuller. So you got one really nice defensive back there. Then you add in Surtain on the other side, and then Von Miller and
Bradley Chubb. Yeah.
There you go, Bradley Chubb.
Yeah.
I was thinking which Chubb. Genius.
Yeah.
Bradley Chubb. If they get healthy, dude, that Denver defense could be very stingy this year.
Oh yeah, with Vic Fangio in charge. I mean, that's you know that Vic Fangio had his fingerprints all over that pick. And again, I think the Teddy Bridgewater deal really was the catalyst. Because I do want to mention another thing here, and this is another thing to mention for the Bears as to why they were so gung-ho about Justin Fields. They knew that Minnesota was gunning for Justin Fields. They knew that Minnesota was going to be moving up. If it wasn't to 11 where they were, it was going to be to 12, 13, 14, or even 15 with the Patriots. So the real huge thing was the Bears sort of were getting it from all ends. We need a quarterback, and this is one of the better quarterbacks in the game. And also, we want to play keep away with Minnesota. We don't want to have to face this guy for the next 10 years if he does pan out to be the guy that they think. And then, Minnesota has to settle for Kellen Mond, right? So I think in that regard, you saw a lot of that competition in the 11 to 20 range because, with Micah Parsons, that was, to me, a steal. He's a top 10 guy. You get him at 12. You take what you can get. We talked about how much we love Rashawn Slater and, his his size and his ability out of Northwestern, and they were able to the Chargers were able to bring him in to protect Justin Herbert. You had the Jets moving up to 14, which a lot of people were a little bit surprised about. Minnesota had their eyes to move up for Justin Fields. Once that went away, they said, we'll just trade back, and the Jets get the best guard in the draft in a lot of people's mind, Elijah Vera Tucker. And then that's when the Mac Jones kind of shoe drops, you could say, because I think you could see it in his face. I think that once 14 went off the board and it wasn't him, he was smiling, knowing I think he was going to go to New England. Mac Jones was, and he was in that green room thinking, man, this is a perfect fit. And to me, I think it's a perfect fit. I think Mac Jones
Jones in New England?
In New England, yeah. I just think that's just such a match made in heaven, because remember, Saban and Belichick are very, very similar. Not only very similar, they're buddies, like they're best buddies, and they actually have a lot in common in the way that they run a football team. And if you are, let's be honest, compliance and being a part of the greater team is not really one of Cam Newton's strengths, right? Like, I think Cam is very much a me guy. I'm going to go in there and be the guy. And I think Mac Jones coming in gives them the option to, first of all, go younger, which they needed to. And then also, remember, they went really hard in the free agency, the Patriots did, to improve the offense. They signed 2 tight ends. They traded for Trent Brown. They got a bunch of defensive weapons for their defensive coordinator work with. So in their mind, they're kind of playing with house money at 15, and you just go with the quarterback that I think is going to give the best competition. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if he beats Cam in camp.
Cam and what's the other guy? Stedman?
Oh yeah, Stedman. Yeah, and to me, listen, this guy Stedman, you'll never hear from him again. I'm sorry, you're never gonna hear from him again.
Hey, bro, who was the other quarterback other than Kellen Mond that everybody was so gung ho about?
So there was obviously, we went through the top 5, and then we talked about Trask. That was another big one for them, and then I think the other quarterback. Who was the other quarterback? I'm trying to think.
I don't know why.
It wasn't Ellinger. It wasn't Sam Ellinger, because Sam Ellinger ended up going really late into the draft.
Wasn't it like Dylan something? Oh my goodness. There was another quarterback. Yeah. There was another quarterback that everyone was so gung ho about. Let me see.
I could look it up for us, but yeah, I think in terms of. So there was Mac Jones, there was Kellen Mond, there was Kyle Trask. We went through that. Oh, there. You know who it was? There was
Davis Mills.
Davis Mills. There you go.
Mills
is the one that Houston ended up taking.
Yeah. I need to pull up some of these numbers, because again, I mentioned earlier about people crying the blues about the Bucs taking Trask. I'm just trying to check out these numbers of Mond and Davis Mills. I swear, if Davis Mills 6'4", 212. Kyle Trask was 6'5", 235. So I'll rock with the 6'5", 235. Because I think Tom Brady himself is like 6'5" or something crazy like that. Okay, and then let's see. Can I get the stats, please? You guys gonna give me some stats? I'm here at the Stanford.
The Stanford website quarterback.
Yeah, hopefully, the geniuses up there at Stanford will have this set down. Let's see. Let's take a look. Let me take a look at some of these Davis Mills numbers.
Yeah.
Davis Mills.
He only played 5 games in this year, by the way. That's I want to make that clear.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he only played 5 games this year. Yeah.
Okay, so then why am I wasting my time, dude?
Yeah.
Again,
I believe he's a 1.5 year starter is Davis Mills. So, strengths. He's a touch thrower. He can throw it accurately, but the arm was just not. It's just not an NFL arm. Is what a lot of people were saying. And I mean, Houston.
But dude, you had guys that actually had Davis Mills ranked over Kyle Trask, bro.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot make this stuff up. People like, oh my God, I had Davis Mills. Dude, dude. One of the most hilarious things that I love about people that just all of a sudden, that I feel just all of a sudden just decided to start watching the draft, and now all of a sudden have their own personal top 8.
Yeah.
Nobody, unless you're a die-hard college football fan, had barely even heard of what's this, Kellen Mond or Davis Mills, until all these Twitter fingers all of a sudden be like, oh, look at Kellen Mond. I think Kellen Mond might actually be a good quarterback, blah, 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 blah. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Florida beat Texas A&M earlier this year? Like, come on, dude.
And also Trask, to me, like, as far as his ability to be an NFL quarterback, I think he showed more in college than Mills did, because, you know, Trask, to me, what the big thing with him was like mobility in the pocket, ability to handle pressure. And remember, that was one of the big things about Tom Brady, right? Is like, can Tom Brady, you know, not fold under pressure? And I mean, you saw it this year. It's not like he was completely spotless early in the year. He, you know, when Donovan Smith was struggling, you know, Tom was having a tough time. So to me, Tom, there's no better teacher than Tom for Kyle Trask, especially when it comes to, again, touch, poise. He had those things. And that's why, again, I did a lot of research on Trask, because remember, like, when we last talked about this, there was absolutely no shot that the Bears would have their shot at Fields, at pretty much anybody. Even Mac Jones was a maybe. And their thought process was... Yeah, and their thought process was, we may have 5 quarterbacks taken before we get there to 20. We might have to take Kyle Trask at 20. And remember, there's a lot of Bears fans who were saying, "Oh, I wouldn't be mad at that, you know, Kyle Trask, da da da." And to me, I think the Bucs took him in a perfect spot. The end of the end of the second round, you really can't beat that type of value for a guy who has a chance to be, first of all, your backup quarterback this year. And I know, like, Blaine Gabbert's still around, and you know, I know.
So it's Ryan Griffin, but one of those two is not making it out of camp.
Yeah, and I know. Remember when Bruce BA started talking? Well, I could see Blaine Gabbert taking over this team in a couple years, and it's like that all goes out the window when Kyle Trask walks in the door.
Hey, bro, I'm gonna tell you right now. I would, when it comes to BA, sometimes, dude, you gotta hold some of his words with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
This is the same guy who said that. When they asked him about if Jameis Winston was on a 1-year trial basis, his exact words was, "If he's on a 1-year trial basis, then so am I."
Right. Yeah.
And how much did that word stick?
Yeah, exactly.
So no flipping way was Bruce Arians that delirious enough to really sit there and say, "Oh yeah, I think Blaine Gabbert is the quarterback of the future for Tampa." No, he never was.
Yeah.
So the fact that, okay, so I got these numbers up, bro, and I want you to see this, because I think some Florida fans have amnesia when it comes to Kyle Trask. Because everyone's like, "Oh, Kyle Trask only took over this year." No, apparently he was a 12-game starter last year, and in 2 years as a starter, bro, he had 68 touchdowns to 15 interceptions. Yeah. And you're going to sit here and try and tell me that Kellen Mond, who, don't get me wrong, I think was only 19-3 last year, touchdown to interception, and he only played a few less games. But if you're going to tell me a 6'3", 211 guy played 10 games, or in 24 games, I got a 6'5" guy who, oh yeah, by the way, Florida again went for what, like 10-2, 11-2 this year, and all he did was finish for 4,200 yards throwing the football, 43 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, which was good for 4th in the Heisman Trophy voting. And we got him in the second round and didn't have to trade up to get him.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me, dude?
Yeah, that's a win. Come on, man. That's a win, I think, no matter how you shake it. And let's remember too, like, I think obviously from like an outsider's perspective, it's easy for me to say, but like the Bucs are pretty deep. Like, it's not like there's a lot of positions that they have a giant need at, right? It's like you've got a defense that has well, not only the defense, the whole team has all of the starters coming back. On top of that, you're giving another year under the belt of the reserves. And really, I mean, you can pretty much fill out the roster with undrafted free agents and free agents later on in the offseason. So really, again, I'm going to use this term a lot, playing with house money are the Buccaneers, right? It's just like, hey, you know what? If we can get somebody great here, let's just bring them in. And I do think that was another one that was a best player available thing. I think Trask was high enough on their board to say, you know what? Maybe we could use help here, could use help there, but in a best player available situation, you go with the best player. Simple as that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And another thing that's worth noting too was, the word came out. Ooh, did Tampa Bay call Tom Brady about the pig? Like, did they let him know? Blah blah blah. And sure enough, Tom Brady came out and said, yes, they called me. Yeah. I co-signed on it. I said I would teach him for the next couple of years that I'm here, and I'll get him ready for whenever I decided to retire. So the Bucs and Tom Brady right now are on the same page.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing for the Buccaneers for now and going into the future. That, think about it, dude. Kyle Trask reminds me a whole lot of Andrew Luck, and a lot of people don't see it. Like, Andrew Luck, if I'm not mistaken, was like 6'5", 240 something.
Mobility.
He came out of Stanford with a similar arm like Kyle Trask. So that's why I'm so happy with the pick, because that's why I was so livid when they let Josh Rosen go last year. And I'm like, dude, why would you give a guy who was a top 10 pick, whether you believe he should have been there or not, he's still a top 10 pick who has a good arm that just needs a chance. You sit him on the practice squad. Here comes San Francisco, scoops him up. So let's not forget about that with San Francisco. Yeah. Not only do they have Jimmy G and Trey Lance, but Josh Rosen is still there too. So, so I was like, man, where's the Bucs going to get their backup quarterback? And I'm glad they got it in a guy like Kyle Trask. And even when they drafted their first round pick, Joe Tyrod, I think his name is, the kid from Washington, according to Jason Light, he had a lot of phone calls. There was a lot of people that wanted to trade up to that 32nd pick. He said, no, I want to stay here, got his guy. So Tampa really drafted based on depth, like you said. Based not even on depth, on replacement. Because JPP's getting old, Tom Brady's getting old, Ndamukong Suh's getting old. So, we're going to have to address, do you move Vita Vea to the inside? Do you get someone who can be as much as a beast like Suh and then leave Vita Vea where he's at? Because even though Aaron Donald, as great as he was, I felt like without Suh being there, his impact wasn't as great as it has been in the past. It's been great, but it hasn't been like Zeus great. It's only been like Hades great, his brother great. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I'm like, that's kind of where I'm with how much Suh impacts Vita Vea as much as Suh impacted Aaron Donald when he was still in LA.
And so remember the Bucs, they almost had to take Tyron because, if I'm not mistaken, 4 out of the last 5 picks were edge rushers. And like they were coming off the board like crazy, including to I believe New Orleans took one, Baltimore took one, Buffalo took one, and to me Tyron was a guy who fits 3-4 really well too, edge rusher who fits 3-4 really well. So I thought that was a huge win, and also it's a great segue what you talked about with Tom Brady and kind of the communication with the team. It's a really great segue into what we were talking about with Aaron Rodgers, because that is the essence of what is missing right now with Aaron Rodgers and why he is so upset. And apparently this isn't something that we know now. I mean, we didn't know at the time, but we know now that this is something that's been brewing for the last couple of years, even before the whole Jordan Love stuff. And apparently he was telling incoming free agents like, hey, if you want to play with me, don't expect to play with me here beyond 2021. And that's a little bit of a shocker. And apparently it all started with just blatant disrespect from the GM. It had nothing to do with operational moves, this, that. He chose a quarterback instead of a wide receiver. I think all of us were speculating, well, Rodgers wanted a wide receiver. He wanted an offensive lineman, and the Packers traded assets to get another quarterback. And really what it turned out to be was that the GM is just uninterested in involving Aaron Rodgers in football decisions. It's not unheard of. I mean, we saw it with Tom Brady in New England. We see it with Tom Brady here in Tampa. And the best quarterbacks in the league tend to have that right. They tend to get the first they're the first pair of ears to hear about moves because the quarterback is the most important position on the field and the most important position on your football team. So you keep him happy how you can. On top of that, Aaron Rodgers goes out in the media and says, well, man, this guy, I think his name is Jeff Kumaro this guy, Jeff Kumaro, man, this guy is just, he's exactly what we need in this room. He just, spends a whole press conference basically talking about how much he loves this guy. The next day, this guy gets cut by the GM. These are all very, and I'm not one to defend Aaron Rodgers, trust me, but This is just a blatant fuck up on the Packers' part. A blatant disrespect that's being given to, say what you want about him, one of the best regular season quarterbacks in league history. The guy can put up numbers like you can't believe. You have to respect that. And the Packers just blatantly didn't. And now Rodgers, by the way, it's funny how when Rodgers comes out, it's like the media, everybody's on his side. But when Deshaun Watson says it or somebody else says it, they're a diva, they're a bad quarterback, they are a cancer. But everybody on NFL Network and all these other talking heads, oh, Aaron, poor Aaron, we feel so bad for him. Oh, what a situation. I can't wait till he's out of there. And it's just such a blatant double standard. And really what it's come down to is that Aaron has drawn the line in the sand, has told the Packers he would rather retire than play for the Packers again, and that is a serious threat.
And my issue is that when the news story came out that Aaron Rodgers wanted to be out of Green Bay, the GM comes out and says, oh no, we're 100% committed to him next year, so there's no way we're going to trade him. But dude, for what, dude? You already just drafted Jordan Love about the same way that you drafted Aaron Rodgers many moons ago. It's the same scenario. You're now ready to pass the torch. Mm-hmm. So it's now time to pass the torch, because the argument usually is, well, the Green Bay Packers aren't going to get the value that they deserve when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. Duh, because Aaron Rodgers is 37 years old. Yes, he's still effective. Yes, he's still good, but he's still 37 years old. So I think personally, Green Bay right now needs to strike while the iron is still hot, because you have the Las Vegas Raiders, because John Gruden at some point is going to have to start getting desperate when the Las Vegas Raiders go through another year of mediocrity, because you went out there and hired you a TV analyst as a general manager, and it's not really working out.
Yeah.
Or you can,
another embarrassing first round pick, Nick. Let's be honest. That's another embarrassing first round pick.
Dude, the guy, dude, okay.
He was the third best lineman on his team. Third best lineman on his team.
Right. And you know what the embarrassing thing is? That pick right there, and I shouldn't roast it yet because I liked him, but it was still too high. Do you remember so many years ago when the Bucks drafted Davin Joseph out of Oklahoma with the 15th overall pick? Okay. Davin Joseph was a monster. Davin Joseph was a mauler. And I knew a lot about him because I used to listen to a radio show called Mack, Yurko, and Harry back in Chicago. Back kind of when we were coming up in school. And Harry Tynowitz kept saying, look at this guy. And I'm like, ooh, this dude's a beast. Tampa Bay would be a great second-round pick. With the 15th overall selection, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Davin Joseph. I'm like, wait a minute, no, that's too high.
Yeah.
That's what the Raiders just did.
Yeah.
Leatherwood is a really good offensive tackle.
Yeah.
He wasn't the 18th or 19th pick where the Raiders took him, or whatever they took him at.
No. Yeah.
He wasn't that high. And for a team who couldn't stop their shadow to save their life, you went with an offensive tackle on the, like maybe the second consecutive biggest reach next to you guys taking Salim Farrell. Why? Yep. Because you got Mike Mayock, who once again think he's smarter than he is. Dude, just take the guy. You're not on TV anymore.
No.
You're not competing with Mel Kiper anymore. Yeah. You know, you don't have to make this out of this world decision anymore. Dude, make the one that makes sense.
And I'm sorry, but the fact that Tevin Jenkins, there was like 5 better tackles on the board than Leatherwood. And to me, I think this is another example of like, when you have a guy who thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, and we'll talk about this, about like Tony La Russa, very much in that mold of every room he walks into, he feels like he's blessing it and that he's the smartest guy in the room. And Jesus Christ, if you didn't get that sense from John Gruden and Mike Mayock and some of the way that they talk about themselves and their moves and their shit doesn't stink, because, you know, listen, they went out and drafted, I think, like 5 DBs. To me, they had issues in the front 7 way more than they had in the DBs, and that's just from an outsider's point of view to see that they couldn't stop the run. They were unable to get pressure on the quarterback in many situations when they needed to in crunch time situations. And really, you know, what they're trying to do is, well, we're going to draft based on our division. And Kansas City has a lot of really good wide receivers. And Denver has a lot of good wide receivers. And the Chargers are going to have a lot of good wide receivers. And we want to make sure we can cover them. Why are you worried about the other 3 teams in your division? You got a team to fill out there, man. You got to figure out how to get your team better. So, yeah, sorry to cut you off, but I just thought that was so crazy to see Mike Mayock make that decision and go on TV and defend it. But yeah, you were talking about how Denver, I'm sorry, not Oakland, Vegas,
Vegas, because they're all desperate to give up 3, even 4 first-round draft picks for Aaron Rodgers.
My God, yeah.
Especially the Denver Broncos, because they're thinking what you just said.
Yeah.
Oakland had, I just keep doing it. Vegas has Derek Carr for what it's worth.
Yeah.
I see Justin Herbert in LA, and I see the Jesus Mahomes in Kansas City.
Yep.
So we need to make a splash to compete with these guys, a la Peyton Manning coming in and shifting the AFC. So if you're Green Bay, you got to strike while the iron's hot. So why are you sitting here saying, oh, no, we're just going to commit to Aaron Rodgers when this man is saying, dude, just let me go? Like, what are we here for? You've done little to nothing to give me more help. You've given me plenty of running back help. That's great. But I need some playmakers other than Devontae Adams. You know, I throw a wide open pass to Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and it goes right through his flipping hands.
Yeah.
You know, I got 2 tight ends, can't get open for crap. I can find two random guys on the street and get more open than these morons.
I mean, remember Mercedes Lewis was starting for them at some point last year at tight end.
Yes.
You know, that's completely unacceptable. And Robert Tonyan, to me, was not an NFL tight end. It's just Aaron Rodgers makes you better in that way. And I can't help but feel like this guy is not getting the type of flack he should be for being such a diva and a drama queen, because I mean, I'm sorry, but imagine if Deshaun Watson waited until the day before the draft to talk about how he wanted out of Houston. And the crucifixion, the crucifixion that would happen on national TV about how this guy's all about himself. He's an egomaniac, But it seems like people are giving Aaron the benefit of the doubt, and I think Aaron probably knew that I'm the Jeopardy guy. Everybody loves me, and I'm just gonna come out and say. And I actually was pretty proud of Joe Horn, who was J.C. Horn's dad, former New Orleans Saints wide receiver, who came out and basically said, "Yo, fuck Aaron Rodgers." Because he knew exactly what he was doing. He took away attention from the people that are basically on having the biggest day of their life, and you basically took all the attention away from them. So yeah, that was completely silly. And I think it was selfish at the very least.
Phil says, "Are we really comparing Watson to Rodgers?" Yeah, we're comparing the situations, bro.
Yeah.
The situations are the same.
Hey, isn't this the same dude who was going on your status talking about how the Giants weren't going after a wide receiver? We just are. Yeah. You know what, Phil? Have several seats, sir. Go pour yourself a drink and have several seats. You made an embarrassment of yourself on draft night trying to talk about how the Giants weren't going for a wide receiver, and then they just so happened to draft a fucking wide receiver after that. Have several seats, Phil. Pour yourself a drink and make it.
Wide receiver. Oh,
yeah.
And speaking of the devil, hey, wait a minute. Now, in Phil's defense, he did just admit and said that maybe he went overboard.
Yeah, so does my niece. My niece, when she throws a temper tantrum, the next week she says sorry too. So yeah, Phil, I'm not giving you that much credit.
Hey, you know the Giants were salty as hell when Dallas took Devontae Smith, because I thought that was the number one need, was wide receiver.
Yeah.
Someone we get the ball to Daniel Jones to. Oh, hey, speaking of which, dude, since when? Okay, where have we gone wrong as sports fans? Now, help me out on this. I've had several Giants fans. What is this? Daniel Jones' third year in the league?
Yeah.
Third year in the league? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For an incompetent GM that Dave Gettleman can very well be, it is amazing that Daniel Jones hasn't died as quarterback of the New York Giants over the last few years, right? But I got Giants fans that are talking about this is going to be Daniel Jones' last year to prove himself, or we're going to move on.
Yeah.
Like, why am I so confused? Why are we always giving trying to make these young quarterbacks all of a sudden become Jesus when it comes to the NFL? Like, do people forget that, okay, not every quarterback can be Tom Brady. Okay, Tom Brady in his first year as a full starter quarterback won a Super Bowl. Not everybody can be Tom Brady. Peyton Manning, who I think is the smartest quarterback that has ever graced God's green earth, sucked his first 3 years in the NFL.
Yeah. They don't give that leash anymore. There's no more leash on that.
No. You got to come out and put up Patrick Mahomes freaking like numbers, or you just suck balls and be on with it. That's why I think the New York Jets are a joke that they got rid of Sam Darnold and went and drafted Zach Wilson for flipping what? Yeah. For what? You're gonna tell me that Zach Wilson's skill set is better than Sam Darnold's?
No,
I think
so.
not.
No,
it's not at all.
No.
But these guys got to get their own guy. This is my guy Zach Wilson. You couldn't take 5 minutes to freaking teach Sam Darnold the same goddamn nonsense you're going to teach Zach Wilson.
Or pay for an offensive line for him, or pay for more weapons, or, if you look at what the Jets did this year, they threw so much money at the offensive line. They threw draft assets at the offensive line. They basically did more for Zach Wilson in 5 days than they did for Sam Darnold in almost 3 years. That's just a testament to the fact that we've talked about it on this show before, the absolute, there's no leash anymore. It used to be the leash was shorter. The leash is non-existent anymore. If you don't come in from day one and show yourself to be a competent quarterback in a league where the offensive line is worse and worse every single game because the defensive line is getting better and better every single day, you're just thrown into the trash. And I use that for Mitch Trubisky, but there's 1,000 other ones that you can use. We talked about Josh Rosen. We talked about some of these other guys who have come into this league as high prospects, and somehow, because their team sucks, they've been shown to be shitty quarterbacks. I don't think Sam Darnold's a bad quarterback. I really do think that if the Bears traded for him this year and they didn't go after Andy Dalton and they had a two-man game between Foles and Sam Darnold, I'd probably be more excited about the season than I am right now, because you would have a guy who can make NFL throws, and he just hasn't had the opportunity yet.
And Allen Robinson single-handedly is a better wide receiver than anything that the New York Jets had. Yeah. And remember, and this argument is further going to go into the same argument that I keep getting tagged in on Facebook with this whole Jameis Winston to New Orleans crap. Because Jameis's last year, he made Brashard Perriman look like the wide receiver he was supposed to be when the Baltimore Ravens drafted him years ago.
Yeah.
all of a sudden Brashard Perryman has the speed we knew he had the hands we knew he had. Then he goes to the New York Jets, and albeit, Adam Gase is a POS as a head coach, but Brashard Perryman was nowhere to be found. And the argument with Jameis is some people get this argument and some people don't, to your point earlier, where Aaron Rodgers, because he won a Super Bowl, even though I don't think he's the reason why they won the Super Bowl in the first place, because had Jay Cutler not got hurt and had the Green Bay Packer defense, actually, had Jay Cutler not got hurt, the Bears would have been playing the Steelers in that Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think so too.
I'll go ahead and tell you that right now,
think so too.
Because that defense didn't all of a sudden just get that great.
No, that was a top-notch defense at that year.
Right, you're facing Caleb Haney or whoever.
I want to say it was McCown. I want to say it was McCown at the time, and that's just so embarrassing to think about. But yeah.
But they were still in the game. Remember, Green Bay only beat Chicago by a touchdown in that game.
Yeah, and I think it was a couple of mistakes by McCown as well that were really big. Right. And if you had Jay Cutler in there, you could have avoided those
easily, right?
Yeah.
So Aaron Rodgers, because of his one ring that he gets credit to, gets the excuses of, well, I didn't have a defense. I didn't have wide receivers. I didn't have an offensive line. I didn't have, X amount of coordinators and X amount of days. So you can see Aaron Rodgers gets, we as sports fans, and I shouldn't say we, most morons as sports fans, keep giving Aaron Rodgers this free get out of jail free card every single time. I'm not one of them, but he gets this get out of jail free card. Now, let's talk about big number 3 or 5, I don't know what, 2 that Jameis is wearing in New Orleans. In his 5 years in Tampa, he had 5 different head coaches, maybe 4 different coordinators. Yeah. And the guy that was supposed to lead him to the promised land gave up on him in 1 year. And the only year that Jameis Winston was ever good, or the Buccaneers had a winning record, was the year that Doug Martin ran for over 1,500 yards, and the only man that was in front of him was Adrian Peterson. So I can't, but I can't say, well, Jameis had a defense that was statistically the worst defense in the NFL. Jameis can't use that. We can let Aaron Rodgers use it, but Jameis can't use it. Why? Because Aaron Rodgers has a Super Bowl ring. Dude, piss off, dude. What's good for the goose should be good for the gander. And if I can't use those same BS excuses that I've used for Jameis, and Bucs fans have seen it right there in front of their face, I'm not letting Aaron Rodgers get off the same hook for the same nonsense, because on 3rd and 3, where you could have potentially run the football, even though I think Devin White would have popped his stupid ass. Your team settled for a field goal. Yep. And you had 3 solid chances to get into the end zone. But somehow that's Kevin King's fault. So we had to get rid of Kevin King and draft another defensive back because Kevin King was so bad in his first game. Kevin King had never been complained about the entire season. He had one bad game. We got exposed against Tampa. And all of a sudden, it's Kevin King's fault. Never mind that Aaron Rodgers looked like straight up ass the first 2.5 quarters. Somehow,
and a terrible fourth quarter as well. I mean, that's another thing. It's like, when you judge your quarterbacks based on fourth quarter performances, he hasn't really shined the way that you think he would. Because again, I feel like there's this automatic credit and automatic benefit of the doubt given to Aaron Rodgers. Every single time something like this comes up, there's always an excuse about it. And again, I was making excuses for him previously about, they did draft a quarterback and then they didn't tell him and he needed weapons and this. But apparently this is way deeper and way more petty than that. This is just about a bad relationship with a GM who really does not give a shit what his quarterback thinks or wants or really has say in. So at the end of the day, it's an ego issue, right? It's an issue that Aaron Rodgers, and again, if you didn't think it was an ego issue, I can point you towards a report that says Aaron Rodgers basically went and told ownership that I think his name is Gutenhorst, I don't know what the name of the GM is, if the GM isn't fired, he's retiring. And it's like, to the point where if you are willing to take it to that point, then we need some sort of explanation of what exactly is happening here. It can't be just about, they cut your favorite receiver. They didn't tell you about the draft pick. They didn't consult you. Apparently, they did not consult him in some of the defensive moves that the team made, including bringing in the Smith brothers and Adrian Amos and some of this stuff. But in my mind, that's one of the few things that has worked out for the team is the Smith brothers and Adrian Amos, and spending a lot of money there. But the offensive line was good last year for him. The tight ends were non-existent, but that offense doesn't use tight ends very much. Devontae Adams is very good. But if you're talking about get me wide receivers, you've got to come correct with that type of request. And clearly he was coming in with a little bit of ego, and not everybody reacts well to that. Like, not a lot of people want a quarterback coming in to the GM room and telling them how to draft. Like, let's just be honest with that, right? There's a very, very select few guys in the NFL history who can walk into a GM's room and tell them, I want you to draft this guy. Aaron Rodgers might be one of those guys. I'm not sure if he is, but if he is, you as an organization have a right and a duty to make sure to make that work. And to me, it's the Packers ownership fault. It's the board's fault. It's their president of football operations fault for putting in a GM who did not align with your star quarterback and your franchise player. So I can see where Aaron Rodgers is coming from in many ways, but it's also very hard for me to imagine that Aaron Rodgers couldn't have handled this a little bit better. The timing could have been a little bit better because, and I think I saw something in the chat. The cap hit is tremendous. If they were to trade him previous to July 1st, I still think that it's doable. Like, if you really wanted to, you could, and you could bring in. The problem is the type of trade you're going to get. Like, what you're going to get: Drew Lock and 3.5 first round picks. To me, that's just not. It's not worth it. And if you're the Packers, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place because this guy seems serious. Listen, Aaron Rodgers can go host Jeopardy tomorrow if he wanted to. He could go and do 1,000 things in Hollywood, keep his money, keep his status. His fiance would be happier. And by the way, apparently him and Danica Patrick didn't work out, and a lot of that had to do with the distance, and a lot of it had to do with the work and both of them working so much. And remember, he was with Danica Patrick for a while. He was with her for a hot minute, and for that not to work out, I think probably made him think, shit, I don't want to ruin another engagement or another relationship here about this, but there's 1,000 other solutions you can do. It doesn't have to be, well, trade me to a team that's nearby her house. Bro, you've got millions of dollars. Get her an apartment nearby. Clear out the guest room for her, bro. Like, to me, there's 1,000 other ways to go about it, and I think Aaron went about it wrong, and I'm not going to be surprised if we just don't see him play next year, to be quite honest.
You might be right on that. Yeah. Because, again, like I mentioned earlier, bro, it's like Green Bay's not even budging on trading Aaron Rodgers at all.
Yeah.
Now maybe the tune might change, like you said, once July hits.
Yeah.
Maybe their tune will change, knowing that the cap hit won't be so high. But as far as they're concerned, Aaron Rodgers is slated to be their starting quarterback, and honestly, I think it's a mistake.
Yeah.
Your new head coach, Matt LaFleur, basically drafted the guy that he was going to be coaching and grooming for the next X amount of years.
Yeah.
So Jordan Love is now the guy. Mm-hmm. So Aaron Rodgers is now Brett Favre in the Aaron Rodgers saga that was Brett Favre back in the day. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So now Aaron Rodgers is in Brett Favre's seat. And you're now at a point in your career where, it's like, okay, I'm 38, and here's the crazy thing. I still think Denver is a perfect spot. Mm-hmm. It worked out for Peyton. Peyton went to what? 3 Super Bowls in Denver and won 2 more, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that.
Yeah.
And
the defense is still very much intact right now. So if you step in
with a defensive-minded coach, right?
And you've got Noah Fant, you've got Jerry Jeudy, you've got tons of running backs, tons of other wide receivers. It's a no-brainer.
Oh, hey, you know what I was just thinking about earlier today? And you said something earlier and it just triggered in my head. The Minnesota Vikings. I am now officially convinced And if I was Dalvin Cook, I would want out of Minnesota immediately. The Minnesota Vikings do not just run the football because Gary Kubiak likes to.
Yeah.
They run the football because Kirk Cousins can't flip and throw it.
Yeah.
And they are going to run this man's career into the ground if they don't find themselves a competent quarterback. Because I actually was shocked when I heard that Minnesota really wanted Justin Fields and that the Bears snagged him in front.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, you just paid $80 million to Kirk Cousins. Also, buyer's remorse. So the same BS, everybody. I bet you the entire NFL laughed when they were like, the Minnesota Vikings has just agreed to a 5-year, $80 million contract. They were like, yo, dumbasses signed this dude for approximately $16 million a year.
And then speaking of dead money, Nick, because again, I hate the dead money argument. Listen, dead money sucks, but teams do it. Teams don't mind eating dead money if it means listen, if in an alternate universe where Minnesota drafts Justin Fields, they're signing the buyout contract and they're eating dead money all day, every day for Kirk Cousins. They don't mind that. But because it's Kellen Mond, well, I don't know, we've got a buyout here that's going to be tough. We're going to eat a lot of money. So really, I agree with you. I think if you're Minnesota, and that's why I think, man, could it have gone much better for the Bears and also the Lions too? I thought the Lions had a pretty darn good draft. I thought
they did too.
Yeah, I thought Penei Sewell was a really good pick for them, very necessary. And really, in reality, I think a lot of people are kind of sleeping on where the Lions kind of stood last year. The Lions were a team that was in almost every single game, that had a fat fuck head coach who didn't know what the fuck he was doing. And in reality, if they were able to find a competent game manager, a competent offensive coordinator, they were going to be in a lot of games. Remember, they should have beat the Bears in the opening game. Remember that game? It was like Swift dropped it in the end zone. That should have been a win for them. And then they had 3 or 4 other games like that where that came down to 1 or 2 possessions. So I'm not expecting the Lions to be bad, but to me, could it have gone any better for the Bears than the Lions to hear Aaron Rodgers wants out? Dalvin Cook needs a new deal. They on top of that, Minnesota is really strapped for cash, and they have to fill a whole defense. I mean, I remember somebody saying, well, Minnesota, that's a great pick for them because you never. And I'm thinking, are we watching the same team? Minnesota needs offensive line. They need defensive line. They need linebacker. They have aging safeties. They don't have Xavier Rhodes or cornerbacks anymore. You could use a corner. So to me, when you're looking at the grand scheme of things, there's 2 very clear losers. And obviously I think the biggest loser is the Packers in this situation, because no matter what happens from this, I'm not sure how repairable this is, Nick. Like, can you mend things so much to the point where Aaron Rodgers says, you know what, fuck it, I'll just come back and play? I'm not sure, man. I'm not sure. So, great news for the Bears. Great news for the Lions. Even great news for the Vikings. But again, the Vikings, and that's another thing that kind of bothered me about the Bears. This could have been an A+++++ draft and offseason. But instead of, you signed Andy Dalton to a $10 million deal, and as a result had to let go of Kyle Fuller. Now you have a quarterback room that has a top 11 pick in Justin Fields. That's a lot of money to pay for a rookie, even if it's not a lot to pay for a quarterback. $10 million for Andy Dalton, and almost $10 million for Nick Foles. And Nick Foles, by the way, apparently is not going anywhere because it's going to be very hard to trade him before July as well. So in reality, if you would have just left the quarterback room at Nick Foles, and you know what, go out and sign somebody for a 2-year veteran minimum type of deal, and you brought in Justin Fields, holy shit, that is an A+ offseason. You kept your best cornerback. You kept your defensive pieces. Roquan Smith has another year on his deal. You can extend him next year. You could have extended Hicks. You could have extended Fuller. You could have made the money a little bit better, and that would have been an A++ offseason. Now, when you look at it, you go, oh my God, good draft. I thought the draft overall was really good, and in general was really good for the Bears. I thought Tevin Jenkins Jenkins was an amazing pick at that pick, and I think they needed to move up to draft him. He fits the scheme perfectly at right tackle, but now apparently they have cut Charles Leno because of needing to get under the cap, and now they're going to think of moving him to left tackle. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but again, it is what it is. They're the coaches. They'll figure out what they can do. And then again, they drafted for need. They got another offensive lineman, got some cornerback help, another wide receiver, another special team running back. So I thought it was a great draft for the Bears. Could have been an A+ grand slam home run if you just would have planned it a little bit better and didn't have to give up Kyle Fuller. So
here's my thing though, dude. I don't know if it was they needed to plan it better or somewhere they got nervous.
True.
Like somewhere, I don't know from who it's from, as much as the Bears need to get move on from Ted Phillips. It could have been from him. It could not have been from him.
Yeah.
Somebody sparked something under the ass of both Nagy and Pace.
Yeah.
To somehow improve this team, and they jumped the gun too fast.
Yeah.
Because I think where you answer your own question to an extent was, it's like, okay, we didn't have to go get Andy Dalton. True. But at the same time, who would have thought in the perfect world you could trade up? Okay, not only did you trade up 9 spots to 11, you traded up 9 spots to 11 to a GM who is notorious for wanting to trade back.
Yeah.
Dave Gettleman went on national TV and said that he sometimes calls teams to see if they want to move up. When we all know that a team that wants to move back doesn't call another team and say, hey, you want to jump up and think you're going to get a premium package.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So my thing was, for the Bears, unless they had a fortune teller,
right.
they would have never dreamed that this was the scenario that they were going to be in. Yeah. Because at the draft, all the chips fell into place.
True.
Justin Fields is the guy we want, but we're sure that he's not going to be there at 20.
Right.
Okay. So then you get past 9, and Denver drafts Patrick Surtain, and you're like, hold on, crap. So then you see the Eagles trade up, and they just drafted Jalen Hurts, so they're not getting a quarterback.
Yeah.
So they go Devontae Smith. So then the Bears are like, is this really life, God? Are you really blessing me right now?
Right, yeah.
Here's the New York Giants. Dave Gettleman's majority dumbass. I think looking back, maybe the overall package wasn't too bad that they got back from the Bears. But the Bears knew that they could knock on desperate Gettleman's door and be like, hey, man, we'll trade up. And he was going to take whatever they threw at him.
That's a very good point, because the Bears had no idea that Justin Fields would be on the board. I think they were thinking along the lines of bring in Andy Dalton, draft best player available in the first round, maybe offensive line, whatever you can do. And then maybe in the second round, draft Trask, draft Mon, draft, Davis Mills. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think hindsight's 20/20. It's very easy for me to sit here and say, why did they do this when they knew they were going to do this? But again, it leaves a little bit of a bad taste in your mouth that you have to let go of your starting left tackle, your best cornerback. You almost had to let go of one of your best defensive linemen in Akeem Hicks and an X factor for the defense, just so that you can feel and bring in Andy Dalton. So I think I'll feel a little bit better when they trade Nick Foles.
Right. And think about it like this too. We're only assuming that Justin Fields is not going to start because Andy Dalton got paid $14 million, was told was the starter.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Matt Flynn would like to write a whole book on how that worked out for him.
Yeah. That's
you get what I'm saying?
That's so true. Him and Russell Wilson's ex-girlfriend from the draft are both about to write that book. You know what I'm talking about?
How my life got changed by Russell Wilson, by the ex-girlfriend and Matt Flynn.
Yeah, and now he's with Sierra.
Right. Here comes Matt Flynn. I just threw 5 touchdowns against the Detroit Lions in Week 17.
They promised me the starting job. They said I would be the starter.
With the third pick in the 2000 whatever it was draft, the Seattle Seahawks take Russell Wilson, quarterback from Wisconsin, and from there my whole world crumbled down. And I think Andy Dalton finna get hit with the same bat upside his head.
Yeah.
Let Justin Fields go out there during whatever preseason games we got and whatever training camps or OT. I don't know what the NFLPA
Sure,
is for
yeah.
ever fighting about nowadays.
Yeah.
But let Justin Fields go out there and shine.
It's Mike Glenn.
pretty
It's
sure-
Mike Glennon all over again, Nick. It's Mike Glennon all
Yep.
over again.
Yep.
It's we're gonna buy a quarterback early in the offseason, and then oh shit, we're in the draft time, and now we have an opportunity to get the quarterback we want. Not to say that Mitch Trubisky worked out, but yeah, it's a little bit of a back. It's putting the cart before the horse in many ways, and that's why I was a little bit peeved that they committed to to him starting to. And then by the way, I mean, listen, Andy Dalton got a call from Ryan Pace about this pick. If Andy Dalton, he's been with the organization for 5 minutes, can get that type of respect from the GM. Let's just say that I think the Packers can call Aaron Rodgers and tell them they're going to take Jordan Love. So, I think it's important to understand the dynamics of what the draft is. Every player in the league who has been in the league and has established themselves knows exactly what the draft day is. It's not a good day for them, by the way. People who are on veteran contracts or on expiring contract do not like watching the draft. They're watching their replacement get placed onto the team, and likely they're just a signature away from a pink slip. So to me, to be sensitive about that situation is important for the quarterback in specific, because he's supposed to be the heart and soul of your team, the leader, the most important position on the field, probably the hardest position to play in sports. And I think if Andy Dalton can get that type of respect, I think you can spare some of that for Aaron Rodgers as well. So,
freaking right, dude. The Yankees have just come back and tied the Nationals at 2-2.
There you go.
So
okay.
I'm pretty sure while Max Scherzer was out here looking like Cy Young, his flipping self, because Aaron Judge is like 6'7", but can't hit fastballs down the middle of the plate all of a sudden. The guy is ridiculous. The Yankees are showing more heart and about to take out the Nationals. I just need I don't know who's up, Aaron Hicks to actually get a hit so the Yankees can pull out with this win.
Nice.
So,
bottom of the ninth,
yeah,
guys. 1 out, 2 on for the Yankees. If you guys are just listening, and yeah, that's a good transition, because your Yankees have played some better ball. I mean, it's 500, pretty much 500 ball all across the board for the Yankees, but definitely has gone a lot better in the last week and a half, 2 weeks than it did the first couple weeks.
Yeah, and you know what? The Yankees right now are starting to get hit with the, decimated with the injury bug.
Yeah.
However, the guy that's really come on has been Giancarlo Stanton of all people. And again, Gleyber Torres, remember Gleyber Torres had a talking with Aaron Boone, when he didn't run out a ground ball or something. And I don't know if Aaron Boone was like, hey, man, you do that again, I yank your ass out of this game.
Yeah.
And Gleyber has been playing much better. Giancarlo, I mentioned, is playing much better. I'm not sure how long it's going to be before Luke Voigt comes in, but Miguel Andujar got called up. He played yesterday. He played okay, but he played yesterday. So I think the Yankees right now are kind of in a spot where there's actually some people that are ready to move on from Aaron Judge. Which I think is the craziest thing ever, but it's some Yankee, but
has he gotten paid yet, or has he gotten extended yet, or no?
No.
Okay.
Aaron didn't get extended yet, and I always do what's best for the squad. And don't get me wrong, I love Aaron Judge. I don't understand what exactly is going through his head sometimes. You know what I'm saying? I understand baseball's a hard sport, but I never knew that a pitcher can have a batter so locked that a fastball down the middle of the plate, not a batter can swing at it.
Yeah.
And I saw Brett Gardner do it earlier on Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer gives him a nice little curve piece, paints the corner like Picasso.
Yeah.
Okay, 0-2. 0-2 pitch fastball right down the middle of the plate. Brett Gardner just looking at it.
Yeah, that's
so it's like the Yankees for some reason offensively can't get out of their way, whether to be aggressive or not be aggressive at the plate. But when they are aggressive, they're almost too aggressive. And when they're not aggressive, they look like idiots. So at some point, they're going to have to mend it together. But the problem with the Yankees has not been the pitching. The pitching has actually been pretty good, especially under Kyle Higashioka. And Aroldis Chapman has pretty much been money in the bank this year too. Now that he's added the splitter to his repertoire of pitches, it's actually working, like working really well. You know, so you got a 99-mile-an-hour fastball with a 91-mile-an-hour slider, and now you're going to add a 92-mile-an-hour dipping splitter. Yeah, so that kind of, I thought that was smart. So I think Mack Blake, even though I thought David Cone should have got a real consideration for the pitching job in New York, Matt Blake has really been doing his thing, and his pitching staff has really been well. Few struggles here and there. Jameson Taillon's been struggling. Yeah. Luis Severino should be back in the next couple of months. I'm looking forward to him coming back. So
and Kluber is a notoriously slow starter too. Because
but he pitched today and only gave up a couple of runs. I know he was kind of wild at first. Yeah. But he was good today too. So
that's encouraging. Yeah.
So it's very encouraging, and I think the two guys right now I think are on the hot seat could end up being Aaron Judge if he doesn't get his strikeouts under control. And I think Gary Sanchez is on notice because the pitching staff is much better under Higashioka than it is under Gary Sanchez. And plus Kyle hits the ball, has been hitting the ball a little bit better than Gary Sanchez too. So
and without the extension, you almost could get more back for Judge than if you were to extend him and have to move on from him after. Right. So, I think that's why I asked that question because, listen, we've seen crazier things than somebody with the type of profile that Aaron Judge has get traded, right? I think it's a what have you done for me lately league right now. And I think, if you aren't able to make stuff happen right now, teams have made it very clear they're not going to be scared or anything like that to move on from a player, even if they're a fan favorite, even if they showed so much promise that they were going to be one of the best players in the league. And also one thing that I think is worth mentioning, Steve Stone says this a lot. The best players in the league do not miss middle. Never, ever, ever, ever miss middle. If you swing and miss on middle, and they throw you that same pitch the next one, and you swing and miss again, you're never going to be an elite player if you can get out that way, because teams are noticing that now, and with the way that metrics are working right now, and the way that advanced sort of research is working right now, if they know that they can throw you one of those and surprise you on, let's say, an 0-2 or a 1-2 count, it's going to be really tough. So, and that's one of the struggles right now. I mean, the White Sox, we talk about struggles. Tony La Russa sucks. The team is in crazy injury shape right now. Luis Roberts going to be out for another 3-4 months, probably for the rest of the year. Eloy Jimenez is out. Adam Engel had a setback. We've got guys that are just getting hurt left and right. And through it all, we're in sole possession of first place today. So I think, that's kind of what we talked about. What did we talk about during the offseason? La Russa sucks. We know he sucks. He's an old dinosaur. He's probably drunk half the time he's in the dugout, and we're still going to be a good team because there's not much he can do to stop us from that. And we saw it again. I mean, to say that Tony La Russa is somebody's drunk uncle now is just a complete understatement to what it is, because the guy doesn't know the rules. He's leaving our closer out there. This guy, Nick, this might be one of the stupidest things I've ever heard in my life. He leaves our closer in the ninth. The closer gives up the tying run. And in the 10th, he leaves the closer in as the runner on second base, that extra runner that happens in extra innings. Not knowing the rule. In the rule book, it says if the pitcher was the last person to get out, then the person before them, the player before them, gets to run. Instead, he trots out his closer to second base and tells his closer, who is one of the biggest additions to this team, one of the biggest sort of payroll things that we just did this season. He says, "Hey, Liam, I know you're a top-notch closer. Why don't you go? It's the 10th inning. Why don't you go out in second base and run for us?" And after the game, the guy is so his shit doesn't stink. We talked about it with Mike Mayock, always the smartest guy in the room. I'm a Hall of Famer. Nobody can tell me otherwise. I know this. And the guy says, "Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know I could do that." You didn't know the rules? You're telling me you didn't know the rules? The fact of the matter is, Jerry Reinsdorf completely handcuff this team with the addition of Tony La Russa. And I will go on to, and I will also go on to say, I was not a Rick Renteria guy, but if Rick Renteria were still on this team, not only would we still be in first place, we would be better off than we are right now. So I'm upset about the Tony La Russa stuff because, man, first of all, I'm sorry, Nick, but the dude, I don't know how old he is. He's almost pushing 80 now. During our doubleheader, this guy looked like he should belong in a senior home. He was lifeless on the bench. You are playing 2 games in a day, starting at 4 and then another one at 7, and by 7 it's bedtime for Tony. It's bedtime for Tony at 7. I'm sorry, I hate to pick on the guy, but that's unacceptable. But again, if you're the White Sox, we talked about this. Managers don't win championships, players do. And, managers can affect little outcomes here and there. They can give you some runs here. They can prevent some runs here. But it's never going to be the X factor. But right now, we're only 1.5 a game in first place. We've left at least 3 or 4 wins on the board because of Tony's lack of knowledge.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. Hey, bro, can I reiterate how stupid this whole runner on second started?
Yeah, please. Yeah, that's terrible. Yeah, it's been bad,
bro. Like, I don't understand it, dude. Like, I understand. I get the whole gist. We're trying to speed the game up.
We don't want 16 innings. Yeah,
don't want 16 innings. But awarding, dude, if you're going to put a guy on base, okay, leave him on first.
First, right. I agree 100%. First base should be it,
why would you put someone in scoring position? Like, that doesn't, to me, it just doesn't make sense. I think it's stupid.
I think it is too. And I think also, listen, if you are so worried about the length of the game, add more roster spots. There's no reason why we shouldn't have more roster spots right now.
I agree.
It's just silly at this point to say, well, you can only have, I think it's 25 to 28 right now, based on if you're in doubleheader or whatever it may be.
Right.
You should be able to have at least 30 people. It shouldn't be, oh my God, we can barely field a team right now because we only have 25 spots filled. That's crazy, dude. Like, if you really want to do better for the game, fuck the extra inning rule. Just make more roster spots, give them more pitchers in the bullpen, more long relievers in the bullpen, more starters in the bullpen, and then you'll be able to have these games. And trust me, let's be honest. How many times does 16 innings happen? Maybe twice a year, maybe 3 times a year. If you're really lucky, you get more than 12 innings. Otherwise, it's usually 10, 11, or 12 innings.
Dude, Max Scherzer struck out 14 Yankees today.
Wow.
In 7 1/3.
Yeah, I mean, that's the Fountain of Youth has found that guy, because I still remember him pitching for Detroit, and the White Sox, when they were terrible, were beating this guy up. And when he moved to Washington, I don't know what happened. The guy has just turned into a fucking bulldog, and he could still throw by guys too. That's another thing. Like, he never used to be able to throw fastballs by guys. He could do that now. He could throw a fastball right by you.
Yeah. It's crazy how certain pitchers go to, like, other organizations and they just get seemingly better.
Yeah.
Like, Garrett Cole is a prime example. Remember, when he was in Pittsburgh, he was like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he had the stuff, but for whatever reason, just couldn't put it all together and stuff. And now, I dare you to run. I dare you to run. I dare you to run. Ah! My bad, dude. I thought Aaron Judge was going to take him out. But when he but I guess his biggest downfall was he was trying to throw a sinker and it kept getting pounded. So when he went to Houston, they was like, okay, how about we dip the sinker? We'll just focus on your fastball more. We'll throw in the changeup here and there, and then we'll throw in the changeup. And Garrett Cole damn near beat out Justin Verlander a couple years ago to become the Cy Young, and then ultimately got paid one of the richest contracts in baseball. So sometimes, I feel like there's just certain places that are just incompetent when it comes to developing pitchers, because one entire change in scenery brings out the best in some players.
Yep.
And you've seen it with Max Scherzer, and I mentioned same thing with Garrett Cole.
Yeah, and also it's really interesting to note that, like, adjustments. Remember when it was like a pitcher sucks and that's just it? Like, if you suck, well, there's not much we can do as an organization to make you much better other than trying to give you tips here and there, this and that. But it's amazing. Like, Lucas Giolito is another perfect example of that. 3 years ago, one of the worst, if not the worst pitcher in the league. And then one day somebody pulls him aside and says, hey, you've got a really good changeup. Why don't you start mixing in your changeup low and high and really, really start to throw that for strikes? And that will really, really piggyback on your fastball and allow you to kind of get guys out more easily. Next thing you know, he's a Cy Young type of guy. And this year he's had a little bit of a coming back down to earth moment this year. Has Giolito. He hasn't been like elite by any stretch of the imagination in terms of like what he did last year compared to this year. He's already had, I think, 3 or 4 starts that have been more than 3 or 4 runs, which, you know, not necessarily what you want out of your ace. But if you're the White Sox, I mean, Dallas Keuchel's pitching really well right now. Lance Lynn is pitching really well right now. Carlos Rodon just got done throwing a no-hitter. He's only given up, I think, like 7 hits the whole year and is 5-0 right now. Dylan Cease started off really rough, and then now the last 2 has gone. He almost had a no-hitter himself and had a complete game. So I think the thought process 10 years ago was that, man, our pitchers suck. We just need to get new pitchers in here. And now the mentality is, no, we can fix these guys. We can make things happen. We can watch tape. We can make adjustments, and we can make them better. And Jameson Taylor's another good example of that too. Remember, he was, you know, supposed to be an ace for the Pirates. Has a really rough year, a string of years for the Pirates. And let's be honest, you know, Pittsburgh is where baseball players go to die. It's simple as that. You know, you know, the talent that gets wasted in Pittsburgh. I know they had a stretch like 2 or 3 years ago where they were in the wild card hunt and in the playoffs, and Andrew McCutchen and Gregory Polanco and these guys. But there's nobody that goes to Pittsburgh and benefits from it. Pretty much everybody goes to Pittsburgh and sucks afterwards.
Right. And then has to leave there in order to get up their potential.
Yeah.
But, you know, another good name to bring up is Cliff Lee. Remember when Cliff Lee, when he was in Cleveland, was getting just knocked around?
White Sox love seeing him, dude. Lefty that they could knock around,
Exactly. And so they sent him down to the minor leagues. He was down there for 2 months. He came back, and not only did he win the Cy Young the next year, but then he got paid all that money to go to Philadelphia. So, you know, so, like I said, dude, sometimes it's certain managers, sometimes it's, you know, just a change of scenery to get the best out of some of these guys. But man, when you get the best out of some of these guys, dude, I mean, it's crazy. So, dude, the Yankees right now, I'm just hoping to keep it right here at 3-2. I have no idea who made the last out.
Let's pause for station identification, guys. Hey, it's Mack and Black again. Really appreciate you guys watching, listening. Station identification. We're gonna have to put drops down there. It's like, you are listening to Mack and Black. You know, something that can just push a button.
Hey, let me figure out how to flip and get this Asus computer unlocked, because I totally forgot the password. And once I get it unlocked, dude, because all my good audio equipment, not apps, what do you call it stuff? You know, programs,
are
on the laptop.
No worries. We're gonna beef that up, because, you know, sometimes it's tough for us to remember. We're so in the conversation, and you and I are, like, you know, really good at what we do. So it's hard sometimes to pause and do this. But guys, really appreciate all the support. And again, we really want to continue to push the different platforms that you guys can use to listen or watch us. I mean, we're live on YouTube right now on the PodRiver channel. You can search Mack and Black. You can search PodRiver, PodRiver, one word. We are live right there, and then obviously Facebook right now as well. But, you know, if you're an audio listener, if you like to, you know, bank these and listen to them during the week, you can do that via pretty much anywhere that you can find podcasts, including Spotify, Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts is really what it is, and then Google Play. We're on all of those, so you guys can just search Mack and Black, search PodRiver. You will find us. Really appreciate all the support, and yeah, continue to share the show out, and if you know anybody that might be interested in listening or being a part of this, we would really appreciate you telling your friends and your family about us. But I want to talk some hoops with you as well, because the season is coming to an end here. The playoff picture is starting to become a little bit clearer, especially in the East right now, where Washington has gone on this tremendous run. The Bulls have gone on a really bad run without Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic in some ways. And your Knicks probably have been the biggest winners of the last few weeks, just because they found some separation. I think that was something that you and I talked about really heavily, right? The importance of being a 4 through 6 seed and not necessarily in that 7 or 8 seed, because 7 through 10 this year is the worst place to be. Whereas before it used to be, well, if you're sneaking in 7 or 8, you're going to be the underdog and you might have a shot. But as everyone knows, there's a play-in tournament this year, so 9 and 10 will play each other, and then 7 and 8 will play each other, and then the winner of 9 and 10 will face the loser of 7 and 8, and that team will get the 8th seed, and the winner between 7 and 8 will get the 7th seed. So it's a little bit complicated. I'm not a huge fan of this format. I know that LeBron famously came out and said that this was terrible, even though I think he said that he thought it was a good idea last year. I want to say that earlier in the year he was saying that it wasn't a bad idea. He likes competition, but now that the Lakers have had some struggles and injuries and stuff like that. But I want to start with the East, because we talked about the East picture becoming a little bit clearer. Toronto, I have a hard time imagining a scenario where Toronto still makes it, because the Bulls are ahead of Toronto right now, and even the Bulls are 3 games back of Washington, who, Russell Westbrook's playing out of his fucking mind right now, and the Wizards are playing really good ball right now too, so I don't want to just, pinpoint him, but Indiana's kind of on the downslope right now, so that's the only thing that's giving Toronto and the Bulls hope, but it's a really, really uphill battle for the Bulls to climb here, as you basically, I want to say it's something like 7 games left right now, and I might be wrong about that, so don't quote me, but I think there's 7 games left right now, so about a week and a half left in the regular season. I believe that play-in tournament starts sometime between like the 16th and the 18th of this month. So right. So yeah, let's talk Knicks first, because it doesn't look like the Knicks are going to be able to sneak into the top 3, but talking about playing with house money, Nick, the Knicks have been playing with house money all year. If you guys would have been the 8, 9, or 10 seed, people would still be talking about this as a successful season and a better season. So tell me, obviously from a fan's point of view, you've got to be ecstatic, but tell me how you feel about going into the latter stretch, and then what you think the Knicks can do, and if they can make some noise in the playoffs.
Well, first off, I would like to say that whoever scheduled the Knicks to be on a West Coast trip within the last 2 weeks of the season can severely kiss my ass.
Yeah.
Because I knew we weren't going to beat the Nuggets, and I knew that Phoenix was going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
So I knew we weren't going to win these last couple games, and I know we got the Clippers tomorrow, and then we have the Lakers, who are in real serious trouble right now.
Mm-hmm.
With what's going on with them. So the Knicks have been able to squeeze some out. But, the crazy thing is, bro, I feel like there's a kind of brotherhood right now with the New York Knicks, where you have a collection of guys that are now there because they want to win. I feel like in the past, the Knicks had guys that were there because we were willing to pay them.
Right.
And then you had certain guys where, like, you had a Marcus Morris who was like, oh man, I want to stay here in New York, blah, blah, blah. Then gets traded to the Clippers and re-ups with the Clippers.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact of the matter is, I don't think we have that now. Like when Derrick Rose becomes I think he's a free agent at the end of the year, there's no doubt in my mind that the Knicks are going to re-sign him and bring him back. He wouldn't just spurn New York to go for another contract to go play somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's why I feel with the Knicks, because I think Julius Randle is a star. Do I want to put him in the level of superstar? Nah, maybe not till next year.
Mm-hmm.
Because last year we knew he was good. This year, he's elevated himself to star status.
Yeah.
Now, next year, can he make that next step to superstar status?
Yep.
You got R.J. Barrett, who wanted to be a New York Knick in the first place. Struggled last year shooting the ball. This year, more aggressive to the hole, shots much better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're missing Mitchell Robinson, but Nerlens Noel was always known for his defense even when he was coming out of Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got Taj Gibson, the veteran. You know, it's just a collection of guys that want to be there. But every time the Knicks play hard, like even though we lost, you know, big to Phoenix last night,
yeah,
and the way the Knicks ended that third quarter, I knew that we were going to be in trouble. Even Chris Paul was like, hey, y'all, man, this is going to be a good team for the future.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I wouldn't sleep on these guys.
Did you read into those comments the same way I did? Because, I mean, I know things are going really well in Phoenix, but Chris Paul does have an out next year if he wants it. Did you read into that as maybe a Knicks candidate for next year?
Just about the same way that I read into the Zion.
Zion, yeah, right. Yeah, that's why I asked.
It's almost the same, bro.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. It's almost the same. Oh, look at the Yankees right there. That's how you go oppo, Mike Ford. Yes, sir. And as much as I bitch about the runner on second, the Yankees just benefited from it.
There you go.
Here we go.
Was that bottom of the ninth or top?
That is bottom of the 10th.
10th. Okay.
Yeah, so it's just 3 up right now. I think Brad Hand is still pitching.
Okay.
For the Washington Nationals, but with the Knicks though, yeah, no, dude, I read into that, and think about it. I was watching the game on stream, and I had the Phoenix feed with I hate listening to some.
Me too. I hate listening to the
oh
away.
My God.
Yeah.
Feed, it's just so dorkish. But the one guy was like, "Well, you know, Chris Paul had a choice to go to New York, and he was like, no, I'd rather go to Phoenix." No, that's not what happened.
No.
Okay, why don't we tell the story as what really happened, which was the Knicks wanted to get Chris Paul, but did not want to give up the assets to get Chris Paul.
Right.
Phoenix did. Mm-hmm. That's why he's in Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't just choose to want to play for the Suns. He went to the Suns. But I bet you if you sat down with Chris Paul and said, hey, which team would you have rather been with? If Chris Paul was going to be real about it, he would have wanted to be in New York where he's got ties with Leon Rose. That's where he really wanted to go. So,
and to be fair,
like you did.
To be fair, anything short of a championship this year for Phoenix, which, don't get me wrong, Phoenix is a good team, but if they don't win a championship, does he really have to come back next year and try it again? Because, you know, the Suns are a very good team. The one thing that worries me about the Suns is they're a very good team against teams that are below them, and
right.
they don't play up to the level of competition that they're facing. They almost can beat up the guys who are below or at their level, and then everybody that's kind of above their level or kind of closer to their level is tough. So yeah, I agree with you. I think I heard a lot of Zion. That's why I even ask you, because I heard a lot of Zion like vibes from Chris Paul talking about the Knicks, and let's be honest, he's not the only person that's done that. Pretty much every single team that has faced the Knicks, win, lose, or draw, has talked about how Tom has changed that culture. The defense is suffocating. I mean, that's the one thing that really impressed me about the Knicks. If the Knicks were doing this, scoring 129 points and winning 129 to 125, you don't really say that you're like that gung-ho about the Knicks right now as an outsider. But when you look at the type of defense that they can play on a consistent basis, and you look at what Derrick Rose has done for you guys in terms of being able to be a floor general, taking control when he can. I know Alec Burks has been missing, but like Reggie Bullock has been pretty good for you guys. You mentioned RJ Barrett taking the next step and Randall taking the next step. And man, I mean, how many times did we say on this show in the early days of this show that both of our teams just really want to be Brooklyn? We really want to be Brooklyn. We want to be 6, 7, 8 seed, make a real big stink in the first round, maybe win in the first round, and then the next offseason, it's ours, right? Like, we can do what we can do. And I think, again, the Knicks are just showing that right now. It takes first of all, a guy like Tom Thibodeau to do that. A culture shift to say, We're not going to be the Knicks of the past. We're no longer going to be pushovers. Even like, I know this is probably not a great example, but like the Taj Gibson, Chris Paul dust up that happened where, Taj sort of shoved him and Chris Paul was kind of going back and forth. And I sent you some memes. I love Tom Thibodeau. Tom Thibodeau will tell you go fuck yourself. He'll tell a player, let's go in the back and let's fight right now.
Jay Crowder.
Jay Crowder. So to me, Tom was a perfect fit for that team. And then on top of that, the ability now to go into the offseason when no matter what happens in the playoffs, it's a plus. If you get bounced in the first round, it's a plus. If you make it to the second, third, or into the finals, holy shit, we're in the stratosphere. But no matter what, it's a win here for the Knicks. And going into the offseason now, they can go with a positive note. Free agents, it's no longer going to be a laughing stock of, no one wants to go to the Knicks anymore. No, trust me, if Randall keeps playing the way that he does, RJ Barrett continues to take some strides, and they add one more piece to that, that's going to be a really good team for the future.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And another thing too is that I've actually been looking at some like some sixth man guys, guys that can come off the bench, because our bench really has kind of been the spark per se, because Derrick Rose has been putting up some crazy numbers, but he's been doing it coming off the bench.
Yeah, he should win six man. He should win six man for sure.
Yeah, and everyone's talking about, how come you don't start Derrick Rose? Why do you keep bringing out Elfrid Payton? Because that's what the team is used to. If Tom Thibodeau, for the last, 30 plus games, has had Derrick Rose coming off the bench, so why switch it up now if it's working? If I can bring in Derrick Rose and have him sit on the bench for the first 7-8 minutes of the game, that's 7 or 8 more minutes that I can play him down the stretch, instead of trying to play him because he has to be a starter, because he's playing so much better than Elfrid Payton. It doesn't always work like that. It doesn't always make sense like that. So that's why I think what Tom's doing right now is significant. And I agree with you, dude. Each playoff game so you're right. The Knicks just making the playoffs puts third and some second tier free agents has put us on notice.
Yep.
If we can win at least 2 playoff games, then second tier and third tier free agents put us on notice. If we get to the second round, then you got your third tier, your second tier, and maybe somewhere there's that first tier free agent. Bro, if you get to the conference semifinal or to the conference finals, it's a wrap. You're officially on notice. Everybody and their mama is now going to give you the opportunity that the Knicks have been going, because remember, I'm the same guy that came on this show making fun of Knicks fans, talking about, we're going to play this. Let's wait till the summer game. Let's wait till the summer that we haven't succeeded in. Why? Because we weren't winning games like that. Nobody was going to come here for us to be the laughing stock still. Now no one can say that, because finally Leon Rose makes the right hire while James Dolan goes and messes up the New York Rangers, and we can get into that later if we want to. But James Dolan has no hands on what's going on with the Knicks. It's all Leon Rose. All James Dolan has done is sign the checks. That's it.
Yeah, and that's important. That's important to know, because they could have done that a little while ago, and maybe the team would have been a little bit better off. But I think it took bringing in a guy like Leon Rose, it took bringing in a guy like Tom Thibodeau to give maybe Nolan some confidence that he can take his hands off things.
Right. Exactly. And remember, this is the same James Dolan that went over Donnie Walsh's head because he had to just bring in Carmelo Anthony, but much to our dismay, we didn't go down that road this time. This time it was, we'll stand pat, we'll get better. We made a small move to get rid of Austin Rivers' contract, and he's in he just lit us up the other day.
Denver.
In Denver.
Yeah.
And now, it's just it's just a wonderful thing, dude. Like I get excited when the Knicks play. I get excited knowing that they're going to play, because I know that when I watch on there, I'm going to see 4 quarters of hard basketball. Yes, there's going to be times where they slip, like they did in the 3rd quarter against Phoenix last night, but they didn't quit. They tried. It was just too much. I thought the game plan was there. Double Devin Booker, let the rest of the team beat him. The only problem was Devin Booker was finding wide open guys in the corner, the easiest 3 on the court.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm just saying, and that's why I think the game tomorrow against the Clippers is super important.
Mm-hmm.
If the Knicks somehow go into LA and are able to beat the Clippers, you're gonna tell me Kawhi ain't on notice?
Yeah, and Kawhi has a player option, and people have to remember that it's not a guarantee he comes back to LA. Like we have to start thinking. And same thing with CP3. His is a player option as well, so it's not like he's going to be a free agent. He'll have the choice to go back to Phoenix. But again, like a first round exit from Phoenix, is he really, really encouraged to come back to Phoenix? Who knows? And then you've got other guys. You got Kyle Lowry, who is going to be out there. DeMar DeRozan. Dennis Schroeder will be out there next year. He's going to be commanding a big one. I think the Bulls and Knicks are going to be hot on the trail of Dennis Schroeder next year, so keep a lookout for that. And also remember, Nick, if we rewind a couple weeks on this show, I was sitting here, you were sitting there, and I was talking about how the Bulls are in such a great position. You trade for an all-star center. Oh, my God, everything's coming up roses. And then on your side, it was like, oh, we didn't make the move that we could have made to bring us forward. And now you look at the dichotomy of what's happened now, where the Bulls almost traded themselves out of the playoffs because you broke. I mean, when you trade 6 players and replace all 6, that is a big commitment to do, and Nikola Vucevic has picked up his play over the last couple days and last couple of games, which has been great, but he hasn't been comfortable, and I don't expect him to be fully comfortable in the offense until he gets a full offseason under Billy Donovan. And also Billy Donovan, let's be honest, has not been at his best throughout this stretch. But also, Zach LaVine's been out. I'm a little bit frustrated about the Zach LaVine thing because apparently a lot of that he didn't actually test. He had a false positive and then tested negative, and then within that protocol tested positive again. So he's been out for almost 2 weeks. Just came back, his second game back yesterday, which was a big one for the Bulls, which they really needed again to stay in it. But same thing with the Bulls right now, dude. Like, I'm not really that mad. Listen, dude. If the Bulls made the 10 seed and, get bounced out of the play-in tournament, is it really that much different than missing the tournament altogether? Probably not. I'm not that obsessed with the fact that we're not going to make it this year. We still have a chance, but I just don't see it happening, especially again with some of the teams that are late in the order there. Like when you're looking at Atlanta without Trae Young for a little while. Miami's scrappy. Boston is on a little bit of a losing streak, including losing to the Bulls without Jaylen Brown. They have a big matchup on Sunday. It's going to be a playoff type style matchup tomorrow between Miami and Boston because the loser of that likely has to play in the play-in tournament, which is not what anybody wants to do this year. And then you got Charlotte. Charlotte's just getting back LaMelo Ball, so now Charlotte's going to be a little bit better. Indiana's sort of on the downslope, but they'll have some of their injuries coming back. And we talked about Washington. You've got Russell Westbrook playing out of his fucking mind and is likely going to break a record that a lot of old heads said would never be broken, which is, the big O's, Oscar Robertson's triple-double record. He's one away, and that is... I've been hard on Russell Westbrook in the past. I've been hard on the way that he plays, and sometimes it's a little bit of a stat patter, which he's admitted in some games. But it's undeniable what he's doing right now. And also, listen, Nick, I wouldn't leave the Bulls or the Knicks out of the conversation for a guy like Westbrook next year, because let's remember what Washington was trying to do when they traded for Russell Westbrook. They were trying to get rid of John Wall is what they were trying to do. It wasn't necessarily let's bring in Russell Westbrook as much as it was let's get rid of John Wall. So, and by the way, Houston wasn't in much of a different scenario themselves. They weren't exactly saying we love John Wall. They just said we need to get rid of Russell Westbrook. So the contract could become sort of an issue for the Washington next next year who, let's be honest, they may be in more of a rebuild phase next year, and the Bulls and the Knicks can afford that contract if they were to move some pieces around. So don't be too surprised if the Bulls are and the Knicks are in the mix for that.
And I wouldn't be shocked if the Knicks tried to dangle at least one of their 2 first-round draft picks. Because remember, Dallas now has found something, and they're, if I saw correctly, 5th in the West.
Yeah, they've hopped up a whole bunch. Yeah, they've actually clinched officially now over the last I want to say 10 games are like 8-2 or something like that. So they're clinched, and they're not going to be in the play-in tournament. So they're definitely not missing the playoffs.
Dude. All right, I got a couple things to say about the NBA. First off, anyone that ever said that AD was a better player than LeBron James or Anthony Davis is the reason why the Lakers won the NBA championship last year are all officially goofy. Yeah. Because if looking at LeBron, the way the Lakers are without the king himself, they look pedestrian as hell, bro.
Yep.
And remember, I was okay with Andre Drummond going to LA, and I can admit that I was wrong, because I thought that Andre Drummond being that hole in the middle would allow AD to be more on the perimeter where I think he's more comfortable.
Yeah.
But bro, they can't coexist on the court.
No. Yeah, and let's be pretty fair about that, Nick. Drummond was out when Davis was in, and Davis was out when Drummond was in. So I think they've had to combine like 5 games together. Yeah. But also, I agree with you. You would think on paper, holy shit, a guy who can command under the basket is so much better because remember, like when we saw Boogie Cousins and AD play together in New Orleans, the whole thing was that would work so much better if Cousins was more of a defensive anchor, a little bit more of a guy who can handle the rebounding aspects. But also, I think the problems with the Lakers are way deeper. Also, remember, they went out of their way to kind of change their championship team, right? Like, they went out of their way to let go of Danny Green. They went out of their way to let go of Dwight Howard. They went out of their way to trade JaVale McGee. They went out of their way to kind of shift this whole roster, and the Montrezl Harrell stuff really hasn't worked out all that great. Dennis Schroeder is playing really good ball, but is Dennis Schroeder the best fit for them when AD and LeBron aren't on the court? Probably not. He really works really well as third fiddle. And also, I mean, the other thing I mentioned about the Lakers, Nick, is that I don't know if LeBron can recover from this in time. Right. The fact that he's saying he's not going to be close to 100% before the end of the year, the fact that he came back for 1 game and then already tweaked it and is out again and hopefully going to be back in the lineup tomorrow, it's troubling at the very least. I think the Lakers are safe to stay in the playoffs, but that would be a really shitty situation to have to play in the play-in tournament for them. Yeah,
and I was going to say that I feel like LeBron James, like officially solidified himself on why he's always the MVP of the league. If we're going to just keep it by what the word of the law is, he's not going to win it. But man, do they miss him a lot.
Oh, yeah,
they miss LeBron so much, dude. And another thing too is when you have such greatness in AD, is such greatness in LeBron, that when you miss those 2 guys, you start noticing like noticeable flaws in the team. Like, at what point do the Lakers end the Kyle Kuzma experiment?
yeah.
Like, it's not working, bro. No. Like, it's not working. Like for so long, it's been all this unreal hype about how Kyle Kuzma. Like, I'm in the group with Christian, and this one dude keeps calling him Gold Dust because of the blonde hair. Yeah. But it's I find it hilarious. But I mean, he's got a point though, in the sense of, can we end this now?
Yeah.
Like, dude, Kyle Kuzma's not gonna be what you thought he is. And stop being scared to get rid of him, because if he goes to another team, he might snap off. You weren't scared to trade Brandon Ingram, and I think Brandon Ingram will be forever a much better player than Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah.
And the Lakers, like, dude, at the end of the day, dude, I just feel like the Lakers don't have consistent shooting.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
And remember, they gave up that shooting from last year because they felt, well, we have Kyle Kuzma, AD will still be in there. So they made some calculations that were huge misses. And then, let's be honest. I mean, I hate to sound like a curmudgeon-y old boomer white guy with this, but like Kyle Kuzma, and I say this about some of the White Sox players, and I'll use that comparison a little bit. Kyle Kuzma in LA is a little dangerous. He is kind of a glamour whore. He wants to be out in the clubs. His girlfriend Winnie Harlow is a famous model, and he's on yachts and in sort of like doing the party lifestyle. And something tells me that just doesn't work for everyone, dude. Like people who love the spotlight and love the party life and love LA and love California and oh my God, I get all this attention. That doesn't necessarily always work out for them in the end in professional sports. I mean, the White Sox, I've talked about this. I get a little bit upset at the White Sox because we have guys that love the camera. And that is a problem. Like Eloy Jimenez loves the camera. When the camera is on him, he is smiling, he's putting on a show, and that's what leads him to do something dumb and boneheaded, like try and rob a fucking home run during spring training and hurt yourself and miss the rest of the season. So I know it's a little bit of an apples and oranges type of conversation, but I think Kuzma fits in that conversation of like, is LA the right spot for him, the right media? I mean, get as much as there is put into New York media, you know how like everybody says, well, oh yeah, I mean, if you can't handle New York media, you're going to be in for it. But there's a lot of truth to that. There is a lot of truth to that the New York and LA and even Chicago to some extent, markets for media is so demanding of you 24/7, 365. And, we talked about athletes who've jumped into those types of situations and haven't had the success. I think at the end we'll talk about Kyle Kuzma. I really do think he's going to be a guy who goes to Detroit, his hometown, or Charlotte, and has a solid career and a good career because he's no longer that guy.
Utah,
and also Utah's. It's a good segue. Portland's a good one too. Heather said, hopefully Donovan Mitchell's back soon. He's been out since mid-April. Jazz need him to be successful past maybe the first round. Yeah, the Jazz. I mean, listen, the Jazz they've put together one of the best regular seasons you can put together, especially at home. I think there's something like, they've only lost 4 games at home all season. So they are a team that can make some noise. But without Donovan Mitchell, they are such a different. They rely a lot on Bogdanovic. They rely a lot on Jordan Clarkson, and those two guys are really good in support roles. But Donovan Mitchell coming back is going to be huge because Phoenix is right on their tail, and it's not out of the question that the Clippers will be able to jump up from 3 as well. So Utah has an interesting one, but I still see Utah as another one of those teams that's going to probably play in the play-in tournament, maybe like a LeBron and the Lakers, or even Golden State. That's going to be a big issue for Utah in some spaces.
I'm telling you, especially if it's Golden State.
Yeah, and Steph right now is like in autopilot, but once he turns it on, it's over.
It's over with, and that's why I brought up the comparison of that Dallas Mavericks team in 2000 and was it 2010 under Avery Johnson?
Avery Johnson,
yeah, that was the number 1 seed, and then they
Golden
ended
State
up getting upset by Baron Davis.
Yep,
and those Golden State Warriors, and that's what I feel like. That's kind of what I feel like this Utah team is, where it's like, man, they're playing great and everything. Now let's see how they are battle tested as a top seed. Utah's been in the middle of the pack, and I feel like the pressure when you're in the middle of the pack isn't as high as when you're the top dog. So let's see how they are as top dogs, and hopefully they won't stumble. I mean, Utah's a good basketball team, but we'll see how they can be as top dogs in the playoffs.
Yeah, and we'll get some answers of that. Like I said, in the next week or so, we'll have the play-in. I think 7 or 8 games, depending on the teams, usually left right now. So they're, we'll know what the play-in tournament looks like probably by next week, and that will be a really interesting. I mean, the playoffs, Nick, this year are going to last well into June and likely, some of July too. So
Right.
that's going to be another interesting thing is like players are not necessarily used to this schedule. We're used to the playoffs being basically happening right now, and
Right.
and we're still not quite there because of the whole COVID thing. And speaking of which, speaking of weird kind of new ways of playoffs, I kind of want to talk some hockey with you because it's been a little bit
Hey,
little while.
before we get into
Jump in,
the
yeah,
NHL, can I ask you this question? Your
please.
honest opinion.
hmm
How much time do you think LeBron has left?
I would say, I mean, the problem is that we're going to really have to see how he adjusts to this current issue, which is the ankle, and how he bounces back. As far as here's the thing, as long as LeBron is in the league, he's going to be top level. So you can't say, well, I think he has this much top level. I think he's going to be top level until he retires. The big question really to me is the ankle, is the body going to be able to keep up with the mind and the ambition? And I'm not sure, but I'm not really so sure. I know Max Kellerman said some stupid shit like, we're seeing the decline. We're finally seeing the decline of LeBron. And Max Kellerman, to me, listen, I like, when Max Kellerman talks boxing, I listen to him because he knows boxing, and I tend to give him the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, for the most part. When Max Kellerman talks pretty much anything else, I don't listen. I don't. I just, his hot takes. Remember when he said, gun to my head, last shot, my life depends on it. If it's between Steph Curry and Andre Iguodala, I'm taking Andre Iguodala. And just the whole set kind of goes quiet. And it's like, you're just saying shit now. You're just saying, and that's what I think he was trying to do with the whole LeBron things. He's saying, LeBron, we're finally seeing the decline of LeBron. And in my mind, I don't think we're seeing any sort of decline because when he's on the court, he's still LeBron. But it's about the injury. So to answer your question in a roundabout way, I think best case scenario, I think 5 more years after this one is probably absolute best case. Really can't see him going much farther than that. I think worst case scenario, he's still got at least 2 to 3 years of non-LeBron type of playing. You're not necessarily seeing the type of jumping out the building type of things you see with LeBron. But I still think he's got a good 5 in him. And I do think there is weight to the fact that he wants to play on the same team as his son. I think there's a really big sort of thought process. I think that's LeBron seems to me like a guy who's talked about that with Rich Paul since he started. So I still think he wants to be in the league, but I don't know. What do you think?
See, the reason why I asked is because the question I have with LeBron is, it's like, really, what's left to prove, bro? Plus, think about it. With everything that's going on in the world, I feel like my second question to that, or part to that question is where's LeBron's focus? Do you get what I'm saying? I'm not saying that his focus isn't on the Lakers.
Yeah.
But what I am saying, with some of these social injustices that's going on around in the world, and it's not like LeBron James doesn't put any focus or energy into that kind of stuff, how much time is left? Like, how much is it? Okay, Bronny, I know you're coming into the league. I still got a few more years left. Like, can he hold out that long to wait for Bronny James to come in with everything that's going on? And for what it's worth, some of it's LeBron's own personal fault, to an extent, because for as much as I don't agree with the whole shut up and play, that's a lot of weight to put onto you. Plus, you got to be a dad. Plus, you're trying to play for a championship with the Lakers.
Plus, you're doing Space Jam.
Plus, you're in Hollywood producing shows, and now you're trying to be the mouthpiece for most black people in the socials. It's just a lot on LeBron James's plate. And I just start thinking okay, now you have this ankle injury where if you were 23, you would probably be back, but now you're 37 with 20 years of NBA miles on your body. And even though you're a complete freak of nature, even the strongest have to say, it's time. I'm tired. It's just too much. I have a lot to do. And that's why I asked. I know it's not a question because everyone I feel like LeBron is in that same category as Tom Brady, which is like play for as long as I want to
As he
whenever I'm
wants to.
done.
Right.
But I feel like there's more on the plate of a LeBron James than there is on the plate of a Tom Brady.
Yeah.
So Tom Brady doesn't take on those stresses
Yeah.
like LeBron does.
And I'm sorry, but I get it. Football's a way more physical game, but 16 to 22 games a season compared to 82 to 105 games a season is kind of a no-brainer. That, and now that you say all that, to be quite honest, man, you kind of changed my mind. I don't know if I could see him play until 41, because I said 5 years. And if you're going off that math and you're talking about a guy who joined the league in high school, and let's be honest, he's been dealing with injuries his whole career. It's not new to injuries. Let's be real frank about that. He's a guy who's played through a lot of injuries. You mentioned it. He's a guy who's healed up from a lot of injuries. So, yeah, dude, now that you mention that, 5 years is really hard to imagine, because, like, you start to think the league, first of all, the one really troubling thing about that is that the league is sort of passing him by, meaning the Lukas and, you know, the Zions and some of this new blood. And even like to a certain Anthony Edwards, Zach LaVine, Julius Randle, LaMelo Ball. These are guys that, like, you look at them and you go, Zach LaVine and Julius Randle have 10 years of all-star play ahead of them right now. And they're both, by the way, guys who started in high school, drafted early on. Randle was a guy who played with Kobe. Zach LaVine is a guy who was basically winning dunk contests before he was old enough to drink. I mean, these are guys that are sort of on the ascension. And then you are sort of like at the part of the roller coaster where you're about to kind of dip down. It's a great point, because LeBron, first of all, I'm not so convinced he's going to spend the rest of his career with the Lakers either. I think that the whole AD thing, I think he made it very clear to AD what he wanted to do. He wanted AD to come in, and then AD and him would win a few championships together, and then one day he would hand the keys over to AD, and AD would be the guy, and then AD would be the guy who brings people over and is the number one, right? And in hindsight, or I guess in a perfect world, that makes sense. You're like, oh, wow, that's great. But with AD's injury history, his inability to stay on the court the way that he should be, his inability to really stay consistent when he is on the court. Because let's be honest, when AD's at his best, he's probably one of the best, if not the best player in the league. And that's including Kevin Durant, which is scary, because to me and to pretty much everyone else in basketball, when Kevin Durant's healthy and when Kevin Durant's right, he's probably the best player in the world. But when you've got AD on that same level, it's not much of a difference between KD and AD when it comes to them at their best. So I am a little bit worried about durability in a way that LeBron maybe will not be. But the reason why I say I still think he'll play at a high level is because I think he'll come back next year and try to play 82. I really think he's going to make a big stink about trying to stay 100% healthy. But in this new age of load management and off days and not playing on back-to-backs, I mean, dude, I'm in the fantasy basketball championship game this year, and my team is probably the absolute best team in the league, like bar none. But I have so many guys who are rest candidates. Like DeJounte Murray's a rest candidate, and this guy Lou Dort is only doesn't play on back-to-backs. And oh, by the way, this guy he nicked something in practice, so we're gonna hold him out for 2 games. In this age of the league, I think LeBron can stay in at a high level as long as he's not trying to outdo himself. But I worry about LeBron's ability. What I should say is I will worry about LeBron's ability when we see him struggle in the playoffs. I think that's when you're going to start to see, okay, let's rethink this. But if he comes out and he has a great playoffs, and we talked about this, he's a good candidate to knock out. The Lakers are a good candidate to knock out the Jazz or the Sun or whoever is up there in the West. They're a good candidate to get knocked down. So it really depends on what LeBron does the rest of this season here.
And also let me say this about the NBA too, because while you were talking, I was just thinking about that. You said you don't think that he's going to finish his career in LA.
Mm-hmm. Why not in New York?
Bingo.
Yeah.
Now let me say, and this is the only reason why I would even say that LeBron would never leave LA for New York. It's because of LeBron's legacy.
Legacy, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shannon Sharp the other day said that he felt that Tom and Tom may not ever admit this, but the ring that he won in Tampa would be better than the rings that he won in New England.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because people didn't think he could win in Tampa Bay. And that ring validates that he can win wherever he wants to.
Yeah.
Just like he said that if you ask Peyton Manning, and he may not tell you, he'll tell you that his rings in Denver actually are more validated than his rings in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Because remember, when he left Indianapolis, well, actually, not when he left, when he was let go from Indy to go sign with Denver, his neck was going to give out.
Right.
He wasn't going to be that good, blah, blah, blah. And
he couldn't move. He couldn't even walk in some days. Yeah.
But one bad hit could like paralyze him for life. Like every bad doctor's note you could have gotten from Peyton Manning about his neck, he got it.
Yeah.
But he still went on to play for almost 5 more years with the same set. And now his last year, he wasn't the Peyton Manning we know because he lost a lot of zip.
Yeah.
And he knew when to retire. But he still went out on top as a Super Bowl champion.
And holy shit, those first 3 years in Denver during the regular season, him and Demaryius Thomas and it was crazy.
It was Eric Decker and
Julius Thomas, Demaryius Thomas,
Julius Thomas, and there's so much. I can't think of who else. I think
he had Welker. He had Welker for a little while too.
Welker for a little while, yeah. So when Peyton made, and that's another reason why I always put, like, Tom Brady might be the most successful quarterback of all time, but if I'm looking at a guy that could bring out the best in a player and make them actually better than they are, then look no further than Peyton Manning. Because if Marvin Harrison was as great as a receiver as we say he is, he would have been a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame. We always ask those questions, like even with Reggie Wayne, bro. Look at Reggie Wayne. We always ask, well, is he a Hall of Famer? Do you think so? This and that, blah, blah, blah. Because Reggie Wayne went to Houston looked like a shell of himself.
Yeah.
He didn't look like the Reggie Wayne that was catching passes because everyone was focused on Marvin Harrison. Right. Reggie Wayne. Yeah. You feel what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's what Peyton Manning does. So to get back to LeBron, I'm not saying that I think LeBron's title in Cleveland is the best title he won with all the circumstances that surrounded how that Game 7 unfolded. Because no matter how much Skip Bayless tries to give, Jay, I don't know if you heard that when Kevin Love came out and said that he thought LeBron's block was the best block ever. And Skip Bayless turned around and said, well, if it wasn't for J.R. Smith, LeBron James doesn't make that block, which Skip is a more tolerable Max Kellerman.
Max Kellerman, right?
Honestly, not trying to give LeBron James, who, in my opinion, made the single greatest block in NBA's finals history that led to his first championship in Cleveland that finally put them on the map, then you're a true hater by all ways of performing.
Yeah, that's like saying who was it, Dwight Clark that made the catch for the 49ers, the most famous catch. That's like saying, well, Dwight Clark, I don't think he had you know who was the best, the wide receiver who stood in front of the DB, that's the guy who that's stupid. That's completely idiotic.
You know what? How about I give it to the right tackle because Joe Montana was almost sacked.
Right? Right, yeah. He had to roll out.
Throw, and then Clark doesn't make the catch.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah,
Stupid.
It's silly.
So then with LeBron, so I'm not taking nothing away from his Cleveland rings.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not taking anything away from his LA rings, and I'm not taking anything away from his rings.
Miami.
His rings in Miami.
Yeah.
Knowing where the Knicks are and knowing what they mean to the NBA, if the King left to come to New York and won a championship in New York, he'd be NBA God. Like the arguments between who's better between him and Michael would it. Okay.
It would be closer.
It would be like the tide would shift. I'm not saying LeBron would overtake Mike, but the conversation's gonna be there.
Yeah.
Because if your sixth championship is with the New York Knicks, I'm telling you, that's God status.
And I think there's going to be a lot of people, regardless. Honestly, Nick, there's going to be a whole chunk of the population who will never give LeBron the type of credit that he deserves because of the movement that he made. And, you know, even going back to the Miami thing and then going back to Cleveland, a lot of people gave him flack about that, saying, oh, well, wasn't good enough for you when you were there. But now that, you know, it's like coming back home from college when you went back to Cleveland. But what he did in Cleveland was tremendous, bringing them the first championship and then basically dipping off into the sunset with the Lakers. And we all know the history of the Lakers and that franchise and the type of talent that's gone in there, including some of the best talent that's ever blessed the floor. And I agree with you. I think the storyline of the Mecca going to the Mecca and bringing a championship to New York for the first time in however long, and being able to snap the drought and being able to sort of take New York back to the top. Let's be honest. KD and Kyrie weren't ready for that job. They were not ready for that job because they knew it was going to be a work in progress, and they wanted to win right freaking now. So they went to Brooklyn. Good for them.
And let me throw this in there. They were not mentally tough to deal with Tom Thibodeau.
Sure. Yeah.
Nothing against Steve Nash, but Steve Nash is a product of Mike D'Antoni, who was a product of letting star players get away with murder, basically.
Yeah, Steve Kerr's a yes and coach. He's yes and like whatever you want.
That's all he is. And that's all he is. In New York, in Madison Square Garden, unless you're physically hurt, that whole Kyrie taking days off because I want to, Tom wouldn't have dealt with that nonsense. James Harden, I think, is legit hurt, and either KD's hurt or he's on the same nonsense as Kyrie is. So they weren't ready for that role. They weren't ready for that role with Tom Thibodeau, because Tom Thibodeau would have held them accountable for their actions. LeBron James, in my opinion, is mature enough to be able to handle such nonsense. That's under speculation if he was to leave LA and wanted to go somewhere to cement his legacy. I personally think, because remember, his beef when he was beefing with New York was with Phil Jackson. It wasn't with James Dolan. As much as you want to try and hate on James Dolan, and you can hate on him and the way he's handling Charles Oakley's situation, and I think they're really both being bitches, and I wish they would both shut up about it. And the way that, I'm glad that they were able to fix that nonsense with Spike Lee and how he couldn't take an elevator that he's been taking for like 50 years, coming to the next game. Now all of a sudden, now that James is kind of out of the limelight and staying in the press box where he belongs, or if he's sitting on the court, he's just sitting with security and shutting the hell up and just watching the games. LeBron James is the beef you had was with Phil. He's gone.
Yeah.
This is a brand new regime. We got respectable Leon Rose. We got respectable. I keep getting the wrong guy. I think it's Perry, Scott Perry.
Scott Perry,
who's now our general manager. We got a respectable Tom Thibodeau. We have respectable players. This is a respectable system. And oh, by the way, I bet you. Well, I mean, we already beat you once. We have the ability to now sweep the series from you. And when we do, make sure you put us on notice when you decide to opt out as a free agent.
Yeah. And also, remember,
I wasn't there.
But also, Nick, remember the timeline. We talked about this last time we did the show. The timeline on that whole Zion situation. We're not far from that. We're about 2 years maybe from a possible Zion free agency. And we both know that, if there's one guy in the league that can convince him where to go, it's RJ Barrett, right? So I think that's another really interesting thing to talk about, which is LeBron possibly having the chance to play with Zion. It's a pretty big deal, especially in New York. And again, we talked about the handing of the keys. If you can hand the keys off to somebody, not a bad guy to hand it off to if it's Zion, who, he's been going crazy the last couple of weeks, but he's going to be out indefinitely for the rest of the season. New Orleans has had a really disappointing season. When they didn't trade Lonzo Ball, it really, really screwed them over. And Lonzo's more than likely going to be getting a contract from somebody else this year. I highly doubt the Pelicans will oblige to match. And I think, I think the Bulls, we talked about Dennis Schroeder. I think the Bulls and the Knicks are going to be in on Lonzo Ball. I think there's going to be some winners in the East that think that or know that they need a point guard and can add that. I think Dallas is another really interesting one next year because Dallas is going to have some flexibility if they decide to move on from KP. So, lots of interesting plays. But yeah, Zion, unfortunately, I think we can safely say now, about 3 years before it's going to happen, that Zion's probably not coming back to New Orleans. No. So, yeah, and also I think to wrap up on the whole LeBron thing, I think the most interesting part about the whole LeBron thing right now is that I think it's funny to see us talking heads and guys like Max Kellerman talk this type of talk about LeBron just a year after he's won what a lot of people consider the hardest NBA championship to win in that bubble, and what he did with that team. And also, the season's not over. Like, it's silly to say that LeBron is at a decline when you haven't seen him play meaningful ball in over a year. I mean, let's be honest. The veterans this year were completely checked out of this season. If you were on a contender team, other than guys like the Bulls and the Knicks and some of these teams that were trying to rise, but if you're talking about teams that were like, we're going to make the playoffs, I mean, the Lakers and the Clippers have been in cruise control the whole year, and they're just waiting for the playoffs. So I think it's a little premature, even on my part or our part or Max Kellerman or anybody else, to look at LeBron and go, we don't know what we have yet. Let's wait and see. I do agree that there's some writing on the wall that this isn't exactly going to be the guy we're going to be seeing for the next 5 years. But athletically, if he isn't who he is, LeBron meaning, can he still do what he is doing to the league right now? And I'm not sure what the answer to that question is, because he's going to really have to improve. Let's just put it out there right now. He's one of the best distributors in all of basketball and in the history of basketball in terms of like his court vision, his passing ability, his that. So I'm not worried about that. But when you no longer have the athleticism to drive to the hole and get past guys and get over guys, that means your shot has to be way, 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 way better to make up for that. And I'm not sure LeBron has much room to grow as far as his shooting is concerned. I think you and I have both been watching LeBron long enough to know that he's already improved on his shooting. He used to be a guy that you could have left him open on the perimeter, even in some of his early Miami years. And remember, that's what Dallas kind of did in some ways, where they were like, all right, that first series they had with LeBron's Heat, they're like, all right, we'll let LeBron shoot if he wants to, because at this point, we're not going to let him keep coming in and dunking on us. So that's another thing to take into consideration is, like, can LeBron evolve his game to not just an athletic freak who can run by and over people? And I think that's going to determine how much tread he has left in those tires.
Right.
And I think Heather,
by the way, if I'm the Brooklyn Nets too, when the Knicks are on the come up, they have no one to blame but themselves. Because if they would have just come to New York like they were supposed to, Brooklyn would be an afterthought. But now you're going to have prima donna. You have James, no playoff showing up Harden, prima donna Kevin Durant, and I don't know where my mind is, Kyrie at Irving at times.
Yeah.
And everyone's going to be like, man, so what team do I want to join up with to try and beat these guys? Well, I don't know about Philly. Like, they're great, but do I really want to be in Philly? Their fans are dumbasses. They're assholes, blah, 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 right? Then you're like, well, then there's Milwaukee, but Milwaukee's boring. Yeah. Even though it's an hour and a half from Chicago, I don't really feel like making that drive. No. Where's the third spot? Holy crap, here's Madison Square Garden. Here's the shitty-ass Barclays Center. Oh, yeah, here we go 30, 45 minutes down the road. Here's the world's greatest arena. So, yeah, if I want to go head-to-head against Brooklyn, oh, you got Tom Thibodeau, one of the greatest minds in the world? Sure. New York, As a matter of fact, I'll do you a favor. I'll play on the veterans minimum. Thank you. Bang. Bring out. I'm not saying LeBron's going to.
No,
I'm just saying
yeah.
other free agents that wants to beat these three idiots. Please, man. I'm telling you, every win that the Knicks do, the NBA is being put on notice.
And also, the league has sort of cooled off this whole idea of the Nets, right? I think when the Nets first got together, everyone was like, this is going to be impossible. Just give them the trophy now. This isn't going to work, and da-da-da. And I think now people have sort of talked themselves off the ledge that it's not exactly a foregone conclusion. These guys, I think, have only played 5 total games together, I want to say. With Kyrie, KD, and James Harden together, they haven't played more than 5 games together. It's a problem. That's a problem, especially when the first time you're gonna play together extensively is gonna be in a playoff series. That's gonna be a tough one. So I'm not exactly surprised if they get bounced.
And especially when you have 3 guys that are Super Bowl dominant.
Right.
You know, like who's gonna pass the torch?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I guess the guy that's got the most experience doing it would technically be KD because he did play with Steph and still play with Clay, and they managed to find a way to make it work out. But can you expect the same results from hard-headed Kyrie and Mr. No Playoff showing up James Harden? Like can you really breeze off that? Because think about it, KD can't win a championship by himself. We've proven that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to when they made the finals when LeBron was in Miami. The only reason why they were even in any of those games was because of Russell Westbrook.
Right.
Mr. No Show Up James Harden missed a wide open layup when Dwayne Wade was 1,200 feet behind him and scared him so much that he missed the layup. And KD was nowhere to be found.
Yep.
Then 2 years later, when Russell Westbrook went down with the knee injury and it was up to KD, they blew a 3-1 lead to the Warriors.
And those last 2 games in Oklahoma City were downright embarrassing for Durant. Awful. They were really bad.
Awful, bro.
Yeah.
So we've already seen with KD that he can't win it by himself. He gonna need Harden and he gonna need Kyrie. Kyrie has won a ring, but can Kyrie win a ring without LeBron? You know, James Harden hadn't sniffed the finals till he was the 3rd leg in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
So, you know, it all depends. But the people that I don't trust, just like I don't trust Mark Budenholzer in Milwaukee. I don't trust Steve Nash or Mike D'Antoni in Brooklyn, because it's not like Mike D'Antoni was going to all these finals when he was in Phoenix. He kept coming up short. Or even
Houston,
And Steve Nash running the same system that Mike D'Antoni running.
Yeah.
So what makes you think that if he couldn't get to the finals with Amari, Shawn Marion, and Steve Nash, who all and let me even throw in a Leandro Barbosa, because he was the spark plug that made that team go.
Yeah.
If Mike D'Antoni couldn't get the finals with them, what makes you think that now with him and Steve Nash, they're gonna make it with these 3 prima donnas on the same team?
Yeah, dude, and they don't play defense either. That's another real big thing is, like, at least Phoenix pretended to play defense. They were just bad and undersized because Amari was not really a center. And they pretended to play defense and really didn't do it. But it's not even an effort to play defense in Brooklyn right now. It's just very obvious that they have their mindset that they are going to outscore their opponent every single game that they play. And that doesn't work in the playoffs as well as it works in the regular season. And on top of that, you know, the way that they've handled the load management, which, you know, Kyrie and James Harden apparently had a setback, was supposed to come back last week, had a setback, and now will probably sit out the rest of the regular season. When you look at that and you go, I mean, you start to look at some of the matchups like Charlotte or one of these teams that has a dynamic offensive game with a team that actually plays defense. That's a really tough out for Brooklyn to have. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, we're definitely going to have some questions answered rather about Kevin Durant, about Kyrie, about James Harden, Steve Nash, and James D'Antoni or Mike D'Antoni. These are going to be things we're going to talk about. You know, especially because there's no excuses left, right? It's like the excuse was always there in Houston. Well, the starting, the supporting cast was not that great for Harden and CP3. And remember in Phoenix, it was about, well, they just kept running into buzzsaws in the West and the Lakers and this and this and that. And now that's completely out of the window. They're the favorites, and if they don't win, it's a ginormous disappointment. That's basically the opposite of playing with house money. You're basically playing with all of your own money here, and now have to go in and expect it to win. So I want to get to Heather's comment because she said, White Sox have batted around in the first inning and have 7 runs on the board. Right now? Oh, my God, I didn't even notice. I didn't even see that. So that's amazing. Watch out in a couple weeks, Nick. We play you at Yankee Stadium. Yeah, I'm excited for I'll be honest with you. I'm excited for the White Sox to play some real competition. We played some pretty low-level competition to start off here, but it'll be some interesting games in New York. I know that, Minnesota, we haven't played them yet. Once we start playing Minnesota, I'm going to start judging them. But yeah, that's really nice to hear that the White Sox have batted around here. All right,
the
Nick.
Yankees ain't getting the punk ass White Sox.
Not yet, but
you better bring your pitching game straight, because I got a feeling we're gonna bomb you fools all up and down Yankee Stadium.
I guess that's my main issue right now, is that the White Sox are just the pitching is just not. It's not doing what it's supposed to do right now, especially in the bullpen. But that's supposed to be our plus, or I guess our strength as a team. So I'm not gonna sit here and dwell too much on it. But yeah, excited for the White Sox to finally play some games against real teams. All right. We only got a couple. I obviously have to get out of here and break my fast, but wanted to talk to you a little bit about UFC and maybe a little bit about the NHL as well. So let's jump into some Chell. Because we really haven't given attention to the NHL pretty, not purposely. It's just we have so much to talk about on this show that NHL sometimes takes a back seat. But right now the NHL season's sort of heating up towards the end. I mean, the Blackhawks have sort of eliminated themselves because of injuries and just poor play. And I'll be honest with you, our division is the toughest division in the fucking league. I mean, the way that it's set up right now.
I would argue that.
I know you would. I know you would, but I'm just saying that the top 4 teams in our league, which or in our division, if you want to call it that, Carolina, Tampa, and Florida, they're playing as good of hockey as anybody. Now, I know you guys are in the same sort of league with Pittsburgh, Washington, Boston, and those guys, so probably more depth there. But yeah, it's just, and also, I don't know. Let me get your opinion on this first. What do you think about this version of the standings? I think they should go back to the normal stuff next year. That's my opinion. But what do you think?
They need to go back.
Yeah.
They need to go back. It needs to go back, dude.
It can't be this.
Because think about it, like where the Rangers are right now, if we were in a regular format as it was, we would only be like 3 points out of a playoff spot.
Right.
We wouldn't be
11.
Whatever it's got us, pretty much about as eliminated it's gonna get.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, dude, I can't wait for these to go back. And to the country of Canada, I have nothing against you guys, but can we get this figured out, please, so we can realign our divisions back up, dude? Okay, like seriously, you made the greatest mention 2 weeks ago. The Texas Rangers have been running 100% capacity at the ballpark in Arlington, or whatever the hell they're calling it now.
Yeah.
And I've heard not one COVID case with anybody going to those games.
Yeah.
And
the cases haven't gone up in the area too. So like they were expecting all the cases are going to jump in the area. They haven't.
Nothing. All these people that go into games, like what, for every 100,000, maybe 3 people are catching COVID, and that's a huge maybe.
Yeah.
Like it hasn't been a sting. Like if this was last year, it'd have been, oh my God, like what was it? Somebody went to the Chiefs game. The Kansas City Chiefs game. They had like
10% capacity, and then by the time they left those games, they said like 20% of the people who went to the game caught COVID.
Yeah, apparently. Now here we are months later, and no one's saying anything about it.
No.
So,
especially outside, Nick. I get it. Listen, inside is one thing. Inside, fine. You want to take precautions, but outside, this is getting a little bit excessive here. I think, I've been to White Sox. I've been to at least like 5 White Sox games this year. they are as safe as it's going to get, folks. I'm telling you right now, if you don't like the way it looks right now, just stay home, because it's not going to get any safer or any better than it is right now, other than just us basically getting rid of the damn virus as a whole, which doesn't seem like it's going to happen. So, yeah.
So they won't figure a way for you to get rid of it. They'll just figure out a way for you to live with it.
Live with it, right? Yeah, and I guess and Canada. I mean, let's be honest. I hate to say this because I don't want to be here spreading crazy shit, but like it's not like Canada and their crazy strict mentality when it comes to COVID has done them any better when it comes to cases. Their cases per capita are very similar, if not the same, than a lot of the major states in the United States. So to me, like with what the Raptors did and what the Blue Jays did, and they forced the poor Blue Jays to have to play in wherever the hell they're playing in. I think it's in Florida, right? Or where are the Blue Jays playing right now?
Florida, and then they're supposed to be moving to some minor league stadium in Buffalo.
It's just ridiculous, dude. At this point, man, the protocol. I mean, listen, dude. Zach LaVine tested once for COVID and was out for almost 2 weeks, 2 full weeks. He said he was symptom-free and negative tests after 3.5 days. Why is it that he has to sit out for 2 weeks? Is it contact tracing? Is it this? Is it that? I'm not exactly sure yet, but what I do know is that I think Canada has taken these extra crazy precautions in hopes that it would curb what we're talking about, and it hasn't. And it just simply hasn't. And I think for hockey in general next year, if you want to limit the amount of people that are in the stadium, that's fine. If you want to maybe, shorten the season, that's fine. Maybe, make more off days, that's fine. But to go back to a format similar to this, just because Canada, has a hyper liberal leadership team, to me, it's just excessive, and it's ruining the league. I mean, the NHL right now is in shambles because of it.
Yep. Like, no offense, I'd rather see the Blackhawks and Rangers play than us keep having to play, I don't know, the New Jersey Devils 4 times in a row. Like, it's fun beating them, but that's not hockey, dude. Like a back-to-back game, one game in New Jersey, 2 days later you're in New York, fine. One day in New York and another day you're in Philadelphia in a back-to-back, fine.
Yeah.
Or you're Chicago, if you're in St. Louis one day and then you're back in Chicago the next day because, what is it, like a 4-hour drive, if that, from St. Louis to Chicago, fine. But to have to play the Devils 4 games in a row, dude, that's not hockey.
No. And on top of that,
that's not hockey.
On top of that, you're not really avoiding anything. I think what they were trying to avoid with that is the constant travel, the possible super spreader situation. Nobody's going to Canada, if I read correctly, Canada's not giving up on that policy anytime soon. So we don't necessarily know what next season's going to look like. So you're going to handcuff the whole league, including 90% American teams, because 10 teams are going to have issues with their country's travel restrictions. I don't necessarily see. Yeah, I don't. And to be quite honest, I'm not going to be surprised when the NHL playoffs has record low attendance or record low viewership, because let's be honest, Carolina, Tampa Bay are going to probably make it for the it's Carolina, Tampa Bay, Florida, and then Nashville and Dallas are fighting for the last spot in the Central. In the East, it's Pittsburgh, Washington, Boston, and the Islanders already wrapped up. The next closest team were the Rangers, and they were 8 points away from the Islanders. And then in the North, you have Toronto, Edmonton, Winnipeg, and Montreal and Calgary are fighting for the last spot there, but I think Montreal is just about getting ready to wrap that one up. And then in the West, you have Vegas, Colorado, Minnesota, and the St. Louis Blues, who came back. They were having a rough couple stretches early on in the season, but have come back and clinched a spot in the West. Which some of those teams that you look at, like the Coyotes, the Kings, I don't think I've ever seen the Sharks be any worse than they have this year. They've just been so ass. Anaheim's been ass this year. Buffalo, that speaks for itself. New Jersey coming off of a pretty nice season, an encouraging season last year. Ass this year, Columbus ass, Detroit ass. These are all, half the league right now is completely struggling to even stay above water. So I don't know about you, but I'm not going to be appointment setting TV to watch Carolina play Florida.
Thank you. Like I would already have to be free. Like I'm not breaking
right. Yeah. No.
Like, I'm not missing a DoorDash shift because I want to watch Boston and the Islanders in the first round. No, that's not happening.
Nobody's setting a DVR for any games this year for the NHL. It's just going to be, I'll watch the highlights, and you know what? Maybe if it's a nice matchup in the Stanley Cup, I'll take a look at that. But and before we get out of here, I want to talk UFC with you because we've been out a couple weeks, and it's just been really interesting because the UFC has had a couple of, I guess you could say, so the Usman Masvidal stuff was obviously what you and I had talked about, very easily kind of predicted that, Usman was going to come in and dominate, but to knock out Jorge Masvidal the way that he did, I don't think either of us saw that coming. I don't think either of us saw the fact that, I think I had briefly mentioned it, that I think Kamaru would come out and try to stand and maybe like just to prove a point stand with him, but to viciously knock out a guy who's never been knocked out in his career like that, and to do it in that fashion, I mean, that might be one of the most unbelievable knockouts I've ever seen in any combat sports. I mean, just the way that his head flipped back and the sweat and just the pictures and the video, it was tremendous. And Kamaru Usman, I think he has a case for the pound-for-pound best in the world. Now that Khabib is no longer around, I think you really have to look deep into what he's talking about, because I don't necessarily see an opponent for him other than Colby. Remember, Colby was the guy who I think has taken the most rounds from Kamaru in terms of his career, and that's an interesting one to look into for his next fight, but even that's not a guarantee right now. But I think that's the fight that they want to make happen. But, Rose winning in the fashion that she won against Zhang Weili. I mean, don't get me wrong about Zhang Weili. She is a beast, but she is a puppy. She is a baby in this game right now, and she just didn't. I don't think wasn't ready for Rose and that type of level of competition. I'm not sure. I don't know what you think about this. Do you think it's worth an immediate rematch?
No,
I don't think so either.
I think Zhang needs to go through pretty much what almost everyone else has gone through.
Yeah, Joanna,
get one more fight in, get you a win. Prove yourself to get another title shot.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think it's automatic. If it was a decision,
right?
If it would win 5 rounds, I'd have been like, okay, yeah, let's go for the rematch. But you don't get dominated like that and like, okay, well, I'm gonna evoke my automatic.
Right.
Nah.
Right. Yeah, not even a minute 30 into the first round, you get ganked like that. That's not a good sign for you. So, and then lastly, Valentina. We predicted it. There's nobody left for this chick. She runs through Jessica Andrade, and not only runs through Jessica Andrade, but to make a point, she does it on the ground. She takes Jessica to the ground and does it to her the way that nobody thought that she would. All of them after the Jennifer Maia fight were talking about how, well, maybe Valentina isn't the best on the ground, and maybe she's not the best grappler, and maybe you have to do this. And Valentina took that personally, and she came out and absolutely dominated. And of course, you predicted it just as well as anybody else, that the first question was, well, when's Amanda? Is Amanda on there? Can we get Amanda? Is there going to be Amanda? Is Amanda there? And there's just no respect for right now for the champ, because, it feels like people are overlooking Valentina and almost discrediting her because she hasn't been able to beat Amanda. But the problem is Amanda's so much bigger. And it's just not a competition to me. So we'll see. I think Valentina she softened on her approach. I think her first approach was absolutely not. There's no reason for it. Now her approach is more so, we're going to get it done when it makes sense. It just doesn't make sense right now for anybody. So, and that wrapped up a pretty nice card. I mean, the card, oh my God, the Chris Weidman injury. Please, Chris Weidman, just retire, man. I don't know if you had a chance to see that, but he had the same thing happen to him that happened to Anderson when he faced Chris Weidman, which is just completely, I mean, it's one of the most horrific slow motion replays you will ever see. He completely splits his leg in half and then doesn't notice it, puts his foot back on the ground as if he's, putting a regular foot on the ground, and basically just digs his bone into the ground. It's just absolutely horrific, and wishing him the best of luck, but I think it's time. I think Chris Weidman just has nothing left to do, and it's not Anderson, right? It's not like when this happened to Anderson was a GOAT, and everyone said no, there's no way, and da. But Weidman, man, just give it up.
At this point, it's okay to go into the sunset knowing that you ended Anderson Silva's dominance in the middleweight division.
Yeah, you have a lot of belt notches on your belt to be able to be proud of, and there's no reason. Honestly, what I'm worried about with him most is head injury, because by the time he comes back, he's going to be closer to 40. It's tough, dude. That's really tough. Yeah. So, shout out to him. But again, tough break there. But best of luck and speedy recovery for him. And that wasn't the only freak injury we saw. The Jimmy Crute versus Anthony Smith fight. It was the same thing that happened to Henry Cejudo during the first Mighty Mouse fight, where you get hit in the back of your leg in this really weird area that is like almost like a connecting the muscle tissue to the nerve. And if you hit this nerve, it almost makes your leg go numb. You can't feel, move, do anything with your leg. So it was just uncomfortable to watch, because Jimmy Crute could barely walk. He could his leg, his foot kept dying under him, and he just couldn't move it. And then when the second round came, the doctors came to talk to him, and he's trying to pump himself up, like, yeah, I'm good. And then as he's backing up, he stumbles over and turns his ankle. And thankfully, the doctor just ended that one. You don't want to. Jimmy Crute's a young guy who doesn't have to play through that or fight through that. So another horrific injury, but. Otherwise, that card was pretty nice. The Randy Brown sub of Alex Cowboy Oliveira, that was dope. And then Randy in true fashion to his name, Randy Rude Boy Brown, just kind of flipped the bird to Alex Oliveira, because Oliveira just talking a bunch of shit before the fight. So Dwight Grant versus Stefan Sekulic was a good one. And the one last week, I didn't have a chance to watch the full fight, or the full card rather, but I watched the main fights, and Ion Cutelaba versus Dustin Jacoby is a draw. That was a weird one. Cutelaba's always in the middle of these weird fights. Giga Chikadze versus Cub Swanson, that one I could see coming. Chikadze hit him with a really nasty body shot, and Cub went out, and Giga is there for the featherweight. I'm telling you, if you haven't already, check out Giga Chikadze. He's going to be a featherweight guy. That's going to be a part of it. But the real interesting one last week was that Yuri Prohaska versus Dominic Reyes fight. First of all, Dominic Reyes, man, that's one of the most brutal knockouts I've ever seen. That spinning back fist, he was already really beaten up by that point, and then to take that's a career changer, man. And you can't help but feel, honestly, for Dominic Reyes in that situation, because every single time I watch this guy, I just think, this guy beat John Jones and never got credit for it. And
got credit for it.
And it's just,
and the nut huggers are all like, well, he didn't really beat him. Sound like idiots.
Silly, dude. Silly.
We weren't watching the same fight. That's just like, I have one friend that supposedly that there was some rumblings of Conor taking on Kamaru Usman for the middleweight championship.
Yeah.
But I guess like Conor would have to win like his next two fights to try and sneak up in there. And I was like, and this nut hugger really thought that Conor would have any shot against Kamaru. Man, it's the same guy that's knocked out Jorge Masvidal.
Yeah, it would be embarrassing.
Knocked out.
Yeah.
This is the same guy that's taking boxing lessons from Francis Ngannou. Oh, I don't know if you've been living under a rock. He's the heavyweight champion of the world and just knocked out Stipe Miocic.
Probably the most dangerous man on the planet right now.
Come on, dude.
Yeah.
So you really think that Conor McGregor, who's suspended, well, I guess just cut a check for selling his whatever he owned from
his
the
whiskey
Proper
brand,
12 or whatever.
Yeah.
That's what he's more worried about. Yeah. Now Conor's trying to stick his nose in this feud between the Pauls and Floyd
Yeah.
Mayweather Jr., which I'm giving absolutely no press because
No.
I think it's stupid, and I'm done giving stupid people any
too.
type of press.
Yeah.
And it's exactly why I think Logan Paul and Jake Paul are both morons. And any bar, like I went to a Twin Peaks out here, and they were literally showing the Jake Paul or Logan Paul, whichever one, versus Ben Askren fight. I was like, you guys really are charging people to watch this crap?
Just desperate.
Nah,
desperate.
I'm gonna go right back. I'm gonna continue doing what I was doing. And that I was like, can you please give me this food so I can get out of here?
I'm honestly disappointed in Floyd. I'm really disappointed in Floyd to be able.
What is it?
You've absolutely almost tarnished your legacy by trying to fight a YouTube star for. By the way, the money on that is not going to be that high. Like the it's not even Jake Paul, it's his brother, which is even worse. So Logan is not. He's the lesser of the two in terms of boxing, and that's who Floyd wanted to fight. And then over the weekend when they were like doing the presser for it, it was Jake and him going back and forth. So I'm disappointed in Floyd. And by the way, Floyd looks like a brother who just retired and has just been sipping E&J's, Erkin Jerks, and Cokes for like 2 years, because he just came out looking like I don't know what his
old. Call what it is.
Old.
Floyd came out looking old, basically.
Old. Yeah. And to me, for him to give that energy, it means one of two things: the money is running out, or the attention. I don't think the money's run out because he's made too much, but the attention and sort of the spotlight has been taken off of Floyd so heavily over the last couple of years, especially with the emergence of some newer boxers, the emergence of the UFC, and how people look at UFC fighters now. I think a lot of people look at UFC fighters now as the best fighters in the world, and they look at boxers as maybe secondary now because it's just not the same. So I think Floyd, for one reason or another, just has that itch to come back, and I really wish he would come back and fight a guy like Canelo or fight a guy like somebody else. I know Canelo's probably too big now to make weight like he did before, but I just think it's silly, and it ruins the game. But also to get sort of back into the Dominic Reyes thing, it goes back to sort of the John Jones thing, which is John lost against Dominic, and we'll never be able to prove that he did because it didn't happen, and obviously the judges saw it a different way. But now John is sort of backing up and maybe not necessarily sticking up with what he was talking about a few weeks ago with the whole $30 million thing, and that he wasn't asking for too much money, and now he's come back and say, oh, maybe I handled that incorrectly. It's like, John, you're a grown man, dude. If you can't figure this shit out by now, if your manager hasn't, and by the way, he's separated from his management team, so his management team, I don't know what happened. They said it was a mutual sort of split, but it was the same guys who represent Malky Kawa is the same guy who represents Jorge Masvidal, a bunch of guys in the UFC, Gilbert Burns. These guys decided to move on from John, and I think a lot of it has to do with the way that he's handling himself in public right now. It's making him look bad, really, really bad right now. And it also looks, I don't know about you, but it makes it look like he's ducking Francis.
Oh, big time. And dude, they've been going back and forth on Twitter.
Mm-hmm. And Francis said, I'm ready.
he that's basically what he said.
Yeah.
He said, John, whenever you're done to stop talking and whatnot, let's go. And here's the funny part. Francis Ngannou had basically told John Bones Jones probably the same thing that we've been saying on this show. Like, do you want to look at my last 5 or 6 fights? I've knocked all my dudes out.
Yeah.
You've had not one, not two, but 3 questionable decisions.
Yeah.
And you think you deserve to be in the same octagon ring as me? Guess what? Francis is right. Dude, prove yourself.
Yep.
How about you go out there and you fight a Curtis Razor Blades? Or how about you go against a Derek Lewis?
Derek Lewis, yeah.
You should be in your spot.
Yeah. And by the way, that seems to be the fight that they're going to try and make now is Derek Lewis versus Francis, which I feel bad for Derek Lewis, man, because I can't imagine that going really well for him. Confident Francis versus Derek Lewis is not a good one.
But you know what, dude? You grow from stuff like that.
True.
Think about it. GSP had to take a couple of L's before he got on the GOAT status.
Yeah.
You know, and he took a couple of bad ones. That one against Matt Serra's a fight he never should have lost.
Yep.
But he hadn't lost since. You know what I'm saying? And I think Derek Lewis is going to be a fine heavyweight. I think he's going to be champ one day, just not while Francis is champ.
Yeah, and also Derek, I think the really big reason why I love Derek is because he's very candid about why he's in the game. He's in this to get paid very well. He doesn't really care about clout or whether people think he deserves it or this and this and that. He wants to put on a good show, make lots of money, and he's not greedy at the same time. Like, the fact of the matter is, this guy literally said, I'll go in there and fight Francis for like 1/10 or 1/15 of what you would pay John. So if you're the UFC, that's hard to pass up. And also, I think everybody wants to see a redo of that fight. That first Francis-Derek fight was just embarrassing, I think, for both fighters. And I think Derek has already admitted that it's likely to do with his fault, that his conditioning was really bad and that, he just was just not in the right state of mind to be in that octagon with Francis. So I'm interested in that. I think we can – I think a nice consolation prize would be Derek versus Francis winning, and the next fight being John Jones. I think John has made it very clear he's not going to fight another heavyweight unless it's for the title. So that's a little bit disappointing, but it is what it is.
Right.
And then tonight, guys, we have a shortened card. Extra shortened, went from 12 to 11 to 10 and now down to 9 fights for tonight with I think somebody, I think it was Angela Hill, and another female got a fight pulled earlier, and the main event got pulled for this one. So the new main event is Marina Rodriguez versus Michelle Waterson. So it's not going to be a
Ronnie fight tonight.
It is tonight, and he's not going to be He's not going to be fighting what's his face. He's going to be fighting Alex Morono. So I don't know if you heard, but Diego Sanchez got released from the UFC.
I did.
Yeah. So this dude.
I guess the curiosity, bro, was the ESPN headline was Cerrone came out and said that Diego's like girl/boyfriend or whatever's head coach was the reason why the fight guy pulled. And I was like, wait a minute, I didn't know Diego Sanchez was gay. And then I realized that I think it was a diss.
It was because let me just say this. I'm not a fan of what Donald was saying, trying to make it seem like this dude, like, oh yeah, that's his gay love or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of that, but dude, Diego, that dude is so fucking weird. His name is Josh Fabia. He is so. There was a video that came out. They were in Abu Dhabi doing the pre-fighter meetings with Diego and kind of doing the normal thing that they do, which is just interview the fighter, talk about the fights, talk about his career, and have more stuff to talk about when they're doing the broadcast. And then all of a sudden, at the end of it, this guy steps in and says, I would like to say my piece here. And he starts lecturing Paul Felder and Michelle Olivier and John Anik about how you guys are slanted in the way you talk about Diego. Put some respect on this man and da-da-da-da. And this guy, by the way, he says like he can do a death punch. He's one of those guys that's like, I have a dojo, and if you come to my dojo, I can teach you the 1-inch death punch, and I can teach you. Like, this dude is full of shit, this Josh Fabia guy. And on top of that, he got his fighter cut from the UFC because of that, because they released video. So he took a video of that, and then they put it out on social media as if to say, like, here's our proof, and the UFC is mistreating us. And the UFC just said, you know what? Fuck this. We're releasing the guy. So they released him. And apparently there's not a huge market for him. He keeps tagging like PFL, Bellator. He keeps tagging these ONE FC. He keeps tagging them in social media, and nobody's gonna pick this guy up. He's almost 40. It's not like he was fighting that well before then. And then on top of that, you got this weird ass guru/coach. And again, I will admit, their relationship is a little bit odd. It's like very, hippy dippy sort of like, meditating, doing like, face to face yoga, like face to face breathing and stuff. It's odd, but what Donald said was still sort of a cheap shot. I think there's a lot of things, a lot of easy ways to make Diego look like a fucking weirdo and look like a guy who doesn't deserve to be in the UFC. And one of them isn't, talking about how he has a gay lover and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If that's his business, that's his business. But I will say, I don't want to come off homophobic, but the relationship is a little suspect, and I would not be surprised at all if in 5 or 6 years we hear that they are together. So it's a little suspect, but again, I think that we have to hold Donald Cerrone to a higher standard than you hold me, a guy with a podcast, rather than the guy who's in the media, talking to the media, and basically talking about how like his possible gay lover talked him out of fighting him and da da da. So, but yeah, that fight is off. It's Alex Morono, and I'll be honest with you, dude. I've watched Alex Morono before. I think Donald's in trouble tonight. So Donald's,
I believe it.
Yeah. Donald's got to be on his shit tonight. Also, there's there's 2 really good fights tonight to keep an eye out. Actually 3. Neil Magny versus Jeff Neal. That's going to be a really good one for welterweight. I think whoever's in the mix there could be in line for at least a top 5 or a championship spot. And then in heavyweight, Marcos Rogerio de Lima is fighting Maurice Green, and de Lima apparently is one of these big guys that's sort of like Cyril Gane, sort of finding his way in the UFC, and if he wins another one, that could be a big one for him. And then Diego Ferreira versus Gregor Gillespie. Gillespie's had an amazing career. He just got knocked out, I believe, by either Calvin Kattar or I want to say it was Kattar or something like that. He had a nasty knockout for his first ever loss in the UFC, but he's 13-1 and is fighting Ferreira, which is going to be a really good fight. So that's another one to look out for tonight. In the future, next week is Oliveira versus Chandler for the vacant lightweight title fight. That's going to be an interesting one because a lot of people felt like maybe Michael Chandler didn't deserve that fight. Oliveira definitely did, but Chandler, he only had one fight in the UFC before doing this. So I think a lot of people were a little bit doubtful. And then Tony Ferguson versus Beneil Dariush is going to be a big one. I mean, if Tony loses that one, I don't know what you can do if you're Tony Ferguson after that. You might have to go to the tour. So, and then Jack Hermanson versus Shabazz.
How hard has he fallen off, bro?
Really bad.
He went from the fight that he wanted to have, took one L from a fight he didn't want to have.
Right, yeah.
Not found himself since then.
Yeah, and remember what was his the big thing about him is his gas tank is crazy. You can't put this guy out, and all it really did was in the last few fights show that like he can get his ass kicked for fucking 30 minutes in the octagon, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Just because you can survive that doesn't mean it's a good thing. So,
exactly.
And then, the only other thing to mention next week is Jack Hermanson versus Edmund Shabazian. Shabazian's on the way up. Jack Hermanson sort of, has taken a little bit of a step down. But otherwise, we don't have another really big card until Adesanya Vettori, UFC 263. That one's going to be the rematch between Vettori and Adesanya for the middleweight title. You have Davison Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno. That rematch is on that card, which is another big one. And then, obviously, Leon Edwards versus Nate Diaz. That was supposed to be this week or next week, but Nate pulled out for I believe an injury, and they had to move that to the 12th of June. So that will be they're going to try, I believe they said they're going to try and make that a 5-round fight. We'll see how they do that without a championship on the line. And then Damian Maia versus Bilal Muhammad. That's another really interesting one. Bilal Muhammad coming off of the eye poke versus Leon Edwards has had really a lot of success, but Damian Maia is a 100% jiu-jitsu guy who's going to try and take you down and choke you out. So it'll be interesting contrast of styles there, but otherwise the UFC right now flying under the radar a little bit right now until the Poirier versus McGregor 3 fight. I think which is that's in July. They're flying a little bit under the radar right now. They're struggling to put on cards. It's we talked about how like months and months and months ago the UFC has to put 12 to 15 fights on every single card just to make sure that you have enough fights for the night, for the pullouts, for this, for that. Today was a perfect example. They had 13 on there originally. Now there's only 9. If you would have, only had 10 at the beginning, you basically have 6 fights for the whole fucking card. So yeah, the UFC's in a really weird position where they have to keep putting on these shows, but the risk is still there right now for these guys. And yeah, like I said, Oliveira, Chandler, Adesanya, Vettori, and then the Poirier McGregor card is looking to be good. They're looking to add another championship fight to that one. The only other one that's currently on there is Gilbert Burns versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. So, and that one I believe is going to be in a sold out crowd, I believe in Florida. So remember, the UFC's back to trying to sell out arenas. They don't give a shit about Fight Island. They're going to go back to Fight Island apparently, but it's not going to be to sell out arenas. It's going to be, to make all those rich Arab oil tycoons happy over there. So
yeah, right.
That'll be basically the UFC. By the way, the company Endeavor GME just got put onto the stock market like a week ago or something like that. So now they're starting to. They're going to look to the UFC and say, we paid $4 billion for you guys a couple years ago. Where's our fucking money? Start coming with the money. So I think the UFC almost had no choice but to go in and start trying to sell out arenas in Jacksonville, Vegas. I don't know who else. Texas is going to be the other one. They're going to try and do, Houston and Jacksonville are going to be the 2 main ones until they can figure it out. But it's looking like there's going to be no other international cards for the rest of the year, likely, just because the UK is sort of still in a lockdown phase. Australia is not really interested in anything that has to do with sports. They only want people traveling in and out for necessities, and even then, like, they have these crazy rules regarding their coronavirus stuff. Like, if you are about to leave the country, you have to quarantine for 2 weeks, and then when you get back, you have to quarantine for 2 weeks away from your family. I think some of them have to do it for up to 21 days. It's just it's just hard for me to say, like, if that's the right decision or not, because I'm not a fucking doctor. I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not whatever you want to say that would have qualifications for that. But that seems a little excessive. Let's just put it that way.
It seems like a lot. Yeah.
All right, Nick, anything else, man?
No, I think we've covered 2 weeks in 3 hours.
We're pretty good at this, man.
Hell yeah, dude. we're only this is only our first day.
Yeah, we're just getting started here, guys. And if you guys haven't already, do us a huge favor. Continue to, if you haven't rated us, by the way, guys, first of all, I'm really upset with you and I'm disappointed in you. But second of all, it's super fucking easy to do. And all you have to do is literally jump. So if you have an iPhone, all you have to do is go into the podcast app, type in our name, Mack and Black Podcast, and you can literally give us a rating right then and there. I believe you can also do that in iTunes. If you just Google us and put in Mack and Black, I believe you can somehow do it that way. Obviously, YouTube, we talked about it. We're streaming live on YouTube right now. If you guys like the visuals and you like to look at our faces while we talk, then check out YouTube. If you are more so in this for our sultry voices, then you can go through any of the audio platforms, including Apple Music, Google Play. I think we've talked about Spotify in the past as well. So definitely lots of opportunities for you guys to listen to us. And again, we really, really appreciate the support and the help and everything like that. And we look forward to doing it again soon.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Shout out to the Yankees for coming back on that win against Washington. Thank you. I appreciate you.
All right. It looks like both of us are going to end the day happy, as the Sox went up 7-0 in the first inning and the Yankees came back to win. So hopefully going to be a good one for the rest of the week. It'll be interesting to see what happens in some of these playoff pushes. So can't wait to talk about it with you, man.
Hell right, brother.
All right, guys, for Steve in the back. And again, big shout out to Steve, man. Thanks again to Steve for, doing this and putting
Always.
up his studio and his home and everything like that, and putting time aside from his schedule to help us out and put this out to the world, and, continue to believe in us and what we do and why we do it here. So thank you to Steve. Thank you to, if you guys haven't already, check out RM Talk. It's PodRiver is the channel on YouTube. Continue to support Steve, local level podcast, all of that. But otherwise, for Nick in Texas, Steve's in the back. I'm Mac. Peace.
Thanks.